Hi guys, tonight we drift quietly into the story of how pioneers stayed warm in their covered wagons during the most terrible winter storms. The sun is sinking low behind the wide, flat hills. The air is turning very cold. It feels like sharp needles of ice against your cheeks. The wind is coming off the fields like a cold river, finding every tiny gap in your thick clothes. You can hear the dry, brown grass snapping under your heavy boots as you walk across the hard ground. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you want to let me know where you are listening from and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing those little snapshots of the world. Now dim the lights and let the story begin. You are standing in the middle of a very big, flat land. In the history books, people call this the prairie. A prairie is just a very large area of grass with almost no trees to break the wind. Right now, that wind is your main worrying. It has a bite to it that you have not felt before. All through the long summer, the sun was hot and the dust was thick. But now, the season of autumn is ending. The year is 1850, and you are part of a wagon train. A wagon train is a long line of many wagons all traveling together for safety. It is like a small town that moves on wheels. You look up at the sky. It is a deep, heavy grey color, like the bottom of an old metal pot. There are no birds singing. There are no bugs buzzing in the grass. Everything is becoming very quiet, except for the sound of the wind. This wind does not just blow. It pushes against you. It tries to get under your hat and down your neck. You pull your collar up higher. You are wearing a shirt made of linsey-woolsey. This is a special kind of cloth that pioneers made by weaving linen and wool together. It is very scratchy and rough against your skin, but it is strong. It keeps the warmth of your body close to you, and it lasts a long time even when you are working hard. You can feel the first real snap of winter in the air. A cold snap is when the temperature drops very suddenly, like a door closing on the warmth. You look at your hands. The skin is turning a little bit blue at the tips of your fingers. You rub them together, feeling the dry skin move. You need to get to the wagon soon. The wagon is your home, your bedroom, and your kitchen all in one. It is not very big. It is only about 10 feet long and 4 feet wide. That is about the size of a small rug in a modern house. But for you, it is the only place that will keep you safe from the ice that is coming. Beside you, the large oxen are walking slowly. These are very big, strong cows used for pulling heavy loads. You can see their breath. Every time they breathe out, a thick white cloud comes out of their noses. It looks like steam from a boiling kettle. The oxen do not seem to mind the cold as much as you do, but you know they will need shelter soon. Their big hooves make a thumping sound on the earth. The earth is no longer soft. It has frozen hard, like a stone floor. You reach out and touch the side of the wagon. The wood is cold and rough. This wagon has traveled hundreds of miles. You remember how the wood used to feel warm under the summer sun, but now it feels like touching a block of ice. Above the wooden box of the wagon, there are big wooden hoops that arch over the top. Over these hoops is a thick cover made of canvas. Canvas is a very heavy, strong cloth. It has been painted with oil to keep the rain out. Right now, the canvas is flapping in the wind. It makes a sound like a distant drum. Thump, thump, flap. It is a lonely sound in such a big, empty place. You stop for a moment and look behind you. The other wagons in the train are pulling into a circle. This is what pioneers did every night. They moved the wagons into a big ring to create a wall. This wall helped to keep the wind out and kept the animals safe in the middle. You see the other people moving quickly. Nobody's talking or laughing today. Everyone is moving with their shoulders hunched up against the cold. They are all thinking about the same thing, the snow. You can smell it in the air. It smells clean and sharp, like metal. A historical fact you remember from the elders is that a wagon train can only move about 15 miles in a whole day. That is not very fast. If a storm catches you in the middle of nowhere, you have to stay exactly where you are. You cannot run away from a blizzard when you are pulling a heavy house on wooden wheels. You have to stand your ground and find a way to stay warm. You step toward the back of your wagon. There is a small wooden ladder there. Your legs feel heavy and a bit stiff from walking all day. The cold makes your muscles feel tight. You take a deep breath, and the cold air feels like ice in your lungs. It is a strange feeling, but it reminds you that you are alive and that you have work to do. You have to prepare your small space before the sun goes down completely. Once the sun is gone, the temperature will drop even more. You stand there for a minute in the gathering dark. The silence of the prairie is very deep. It is not a scary silence, but a very big one. You feel very small under the giant grey sky. You listen to the wind whistling through the dry stalks of grass. It sounds like a soft hushing noise, telling the world to go to sleep. You look at the horizon, where the land meets the sky. There is no glow of city lights there. There are no street lamps. There is only the dark, rolling earth and the coming storm. You think about the night shift of the pioneer. While the world sleeps, someone always has to keep watch. Someone has to make sure the fire does not go out. Someone has to check that the animals are okay. Tonight, the cold is the enemy you must watch. It is a slow enemy. It tries to creep in through the cracks in the wood and the gaps in the cloth. It tries to steal the heat from your skin while you close your eyes. You reach for the lantern hanging on the side of the wagon. It is a small metal box with holes punched in it and a candle inside. You call this a Paul Revere lantern. It does not give off much light, but it gives off enough to see your feet. You do not light it yet. You want to save your matches. Matches are very precious on the trail. You keep them in a small tin box, wrapped in a piece of dry silk to make sure they never get damp. If your matches get wet, you cannot have a fire. And without a fire, the cold can be very dangerous. You pull yourself up into the back of the wagon. The inside smells of old wood, dried apples, and the wool of your blankets. It is a dry, dusty smell that feels familiar and safe. Even though it is cold inside, it is out of the wind. As soon as you step behind the canvas, the howling of the wind becomes a soft hum. You feel a tiny bit of relief. Your journey for the day is over, but your work to stay warm is just beginning. You look at the dark shapes of your crates and sacks of flour. They are like quiet furniture in your tiny rolling room. You sit down on a wooden chest for a moment. You can feel the vibration of the wind shaking the whole wagon. It feels like the wagon is a small boat on a very cold sea. You are the captain of this boat, and you must make sure it stays warm through the night. You reach out and touch a heavy wool blanket. It feels thick and honest. You know that tonight you will need every layer you have. The first cold snap is always the hardest because your body has not forgotten the warmth of summer yet. But you are ready. You have your blankets, you have your wagon, and you have your will to keep going. You listen one last time to the outside world. The wind is picking up speed now. You can hear a tiny tink-tink-tink sound against the canvas. It is not rain. It is the first bits of frozen snow, hard like grains of sugar, hitting the cloth. The blizzard is starting. It is time to close the flap and settle in. The long night is here, and the watchman of the history trail is ready to face the cold. The inside of your wagon is very small, but right now, it is your whole world. It is only about 4 feet wide. If you stretch out your arms, you can almost touch both sides at the same time. The wooden walls are made of thick planks of hardwood. These walls were built high and strong. One interesting historical fact is that the sides of these wagons were built to be watertight, like the hull of a boat. This was so the wagon could float if you had to cross a deep river. Tonight, those high wooden sides are not keeping out water. They are keeping out the biting wind that is trying to get inside. You can feel the strength of the wood as you lean your back against it. It does not move, even when the wind hits the side of the wagon with a loud bang. You begin to move things around to make a space for the night. This is your evening routine. During the day, the wagon is packed full of everything you own. You have barrels of flour, sacks of dried beans, and heavy crates of tools. Everything is squeezed in tight, so it does not rattle or break while the wagon bumps along the trail. But at night, you have to shift these heavy things to create a small nest for sleeping. You move a large sack of grain. It is heavy and makes a dull thumping sound as you slide it across the floor. You can smell the dusty, sweet scent of the grain. It is a good smell. It reminds you that you have food, and food means you have a chance to stay strong. As you move the crates, you find your small grease lamp. This is a very simple tool that pioneers used for light. It is a small metal cup with a little handle. You fill the cup with tallow, which is just hard animal fat. Then you put a small piece of twisted cloth, called a wick, into the fat and light the end of it. It does not give off a bright light like a modern lamp. It gives off a very soft, yellow glow and a little bit of black smoke. The light is gentle on your eyes. It makes long, dancing shadows on the canvas ceiling above you. You watch the shadows for a moment. They look like dark ghosts moving back and forth, but they do not scare you. They are just part of the wagon's nightly dance. The floor of the wagon is made of rough sawn boards. You can feel the texture of the wood through your thick wool socks. There are small bits of dried mud and straw trapped in the cracks of the floor. You take a small broom made of dried tall grass and start to sweep the floor. You move slowly, pushing the dirt toward the back opening. You want your sleeping space to be as clean as possible. Even though you are living in the middle of a wild prairie, you like to keep your small home tidy. It makes you feel like you have some control over your life when the world outside is so wild and cold. You reach into a corner and pull out a heavy iron pot. This is a Dutch oven. It is a thick, black pot with 3 short legs on the bottom and a heavy lid with a rim. It is one of the most important things you own. Usually, you would use it to bake bread in the coals of a campfire. But tonight, it is too cold and windy to stay outside by a fire for long. You place the pot in a safe spot near the middle of the wagon. You will use it later, but for now, it is just another piece of your home that you are putting in its right place. You touch the cold metal of the pot. It is smooth and very heavy. It feels solid, like it could last for 100 years. Now that the floor is clear, you look up at the canvas roof. The canvas is held up by 5 or 6 wooden hoops that curve over the wagon box, like the ribs of a giant animal. You check each hoop to make sure it is tight in its metal socket. If a hoop were to break tonight, the heavy snow could make the canvas cave in on you. You run your hand along the curved wood. It is smooth and bent into a perfect arch. You can feel the vibration of the wind through the wood. The wind is getting louder now. It sounds like a low roar, like a big animal growling far away. But inside the wagon, under the curve of the hoops, you feel tucked away and hidden. You take a moment to sit perfectly still. This is your moment of silence. You close your eyes and just listen. You hear the canvas overhead snapping and popping. You hear the wooden wheels outside creaking just a little bit as the wind pushes the wagon. You hear your own breath, slow and steady. In this moment, the wagon feels like a very safe bubble. The world outside is thousands of miles of empty grass and cold air, but inside these 4 wooden walls, everything is familiar. You know where every bag of flour is. You know the exact spot where the floorboards squeak. This smallness is a comfort. It is easier to keep a small space warm than a big one. You reach for a stack of folded quilts in the corner. These quilts were made by hand, piece by piece. You run your fingers over the stitching. Some of the pieces of cloth came from old dresses, and some came from worn-out shirts. Each little square of fabric has a story. You see a piece of blue checked cloth that used to be your favorite summer shirt. You see a piece of heavy brown wool from an old coat. You lay the quilts out on the floor, layering them one on top of the other. You are building a bed that will protect you from the cold air that seeps up through the floorboards. The air inside the wagon is getting colder now that the sun has fully set. You can see your breath more clearly in the light of the grease lamp. It looks like a little cloud of white smoke that drifts up toward the canvas and then vanishes. You pull your coat tighter around your shoulders. The work of moving the crates has made you a little bit warm, but you know that warmth will not last if you stay still for too long. You need to keep moving, finishing your preparations before the deep cold of the middle night sets in. You look at the back flap of the wagon. There are heavy ropes that pull the canvas tight, like a drawstring on a bag. You check the knots to make sure they are tied double. You do not want a gust of wind to blow the flap open and let the snow inside. The canvas is cold to the touch, and it feels a bit stiff from the freezing air. You pull the ropes as hard as you can, feeling the muscles in your arms tighten. The opening closes up until there is only a tiny hole left, no bigger than a coin. You feel a little bit more protected now. The wagon is closed. Your home is ready. You spend a few minutes just smoothing out the blankets. You want them to be perfectly flat, so there are no cold spots. You think about the people who stayed in this wagon before you, and the people who will stay in it after. For now, it belongs to you. It is your shield against the blizzard. You look around at your sacks and crates. They are like a wall around your bed. They will help block any drafts that come through the cracks in the wood. Everything has a purpose. Everything has a place. You take a deep, slow breath and feel the quiet peace of a job well done. The night is going to be very long and very cold, but you have made your nest. You are as ready as you can be. The wind is screaming now. It is a high, thin sound that makes you want to pull your head down into your shoulders. Inside the wagon, the only thing between you and the freezing air is the canvas cover. You look up at it in the dim, yellow light of your grease lamp. This cloth is the roof of your home. It is not like a roof on a house made of bricks or wood. It is moving. Every time the wind hits it, the cloth stretches and groans. It looks like it is breathing. You know that, if this cloth fails, the cold will come inside like a flood of ice. You need to make sure there are no holes, no matter how small they might be. You stand up slowly, keeping your head low so you do not hit the wooden hoops. You begin to move your hands over the inside of the canvas. This cloth is very special. Pioneers often called this cover a bonnet. They called it that because it looked like the large cloth hats that women wore to keep the sun off their faces. But tonight, this bonnet is not for the sun. It is for survival. You feel the texture of the fabric. It is very rough, like a thick rug. It is made of hemp or heavy cotton. It is called duck canvas. This does not mean it is made of birds. It comes from a word that means a very tight, strong weave. The threads are packed so closely together that the wind has a hard time getting through. As you run your palms along the cloth, you feel something sticky. This is the oil that was rubbed into the fabric to make it waterproof. A historical fact you might like to know that many pioneers used linseed oil to treat their wagon covers. Linseed oil is a natural oil that comes from the seeds of the flax plant. They would boil the oil and then paint it onto the canvas with a big brush. Sometimes they even mixed in a little bit of yellow paint or beeswax. This oil fills up the tiny spaces between the threads. It makes the cloth feel a bit like soft plastic or rubber. It also has a very strong, earthy smell. It smells like a wood shop and a garden mixed together. To you, this smell means safety. It means the rain and snow will slide off the roof instead of soaking through and dripping on your head. You find a spot where the light from your lamp looks a bit brighter. You lean in closer. There is a small thin spot in the canvas, right near one of the wooden hoops. It is not a hole yet, but the wind has been rubbing the cloth against the wood for many days. If you do not fix it, the blizzard will tear it open. You reach into a small wooden box where you keep your tools for sewing. This is your ditty bag. A ditty bag is a small sack where a person keeps their most important small items, like needles, thread, and string. You pull out a needle made of strong bone and a length of heavy twine. The twine is thick and brown. It is much stronger than the thread you would use for a shirt. You have to use your teeth to bite the end of it to make it sharp enough to go through the eye of the needle. The twine tastes of salt and dust. You begin to sew a patch of extra cloth over the thin spot. The work is slow. The canvas is so thick and stiff from the cold that you have to push the needle with all your strength. You use a small piece of wood to help push the end of the needle through the heavy fabric. Push, pull, push, pull. The sound of the needle moving through the cloth is a sharp scritch sound. It is a very small sound, but in the quiet of the wagon, it feels very loud. You take a moment to rest your hands. They are starting to ache from the cold and the hard work. You look at the patch you have made. It is not pretty, but it is strong. You have used cross stitches to hold it down, making little X shapes all along the edge. This will keep the wind from getting a grip on the fabric. You feel a sense of pride. In the modern world, people might just buy something new if it breaks. But here, on the trail, you have to be clever. You have to know how to fix things with your own two hands. If you are lazy or if you forget to check your gear, the winter will find you out. Now, you move to the front of the wagon. This is where the canvas gathers together near the driver's seat. There is a large pucker in the cloth here. You reach out and feel the air. Yes, there is a tiny stream of cold air coming in. It feels like a thin finger of ice touching your forehead. You realize that the rope holding the front opening shut has slipped. You grab the thick hemp rope. It is cold and feels like it is made of stone. You pull it tight, your muscles bunching in your back. The canvas pulls together, closing the gap. The whistling sound of the wind stops instantly. The silence that follows is beautiful. You sit back down on your bedding. The wagon is now a sealed box. You look up at the ceiling again. The oil on the canvas makes it look a bit shiny in the lamplight. You think about how much work went into making this one piece of cloth. Someone had to grow the plants, spin the thread, weave the fabric, and then paint it with oil. It is a very simple thing, just a big piece of cloth, but it is the most important thing you own right now. It is your shield. You lean your head back and close your eyes for a minute of reflection. You listen to the storm. The wind is hitting the side of the wagon so hard that the whole thing rocks gently from side to side. It feels like being in a cradle. You think about the thousands of miles of empty land around you. There are no houses for days. There are no shops. There are no warm fires waiting for you except the one you make yourself. You are very small, and the world is very big. But you are inside your bonnet. You are tucked away in your little wooden nest. The canvas is holding. The stitches are tight. You feel the weight of the silence inside the wagon. Outside, the blizzard is throwing handfuls of frozen snow against the cloth. It sounds like sand being thrown against a window. Stash, stash. It is a dry, cold sound. You know that out there, the world is turning white. The grass is being buried. The trail is disappearing. But here, under the heavy duck canvas, the air is still. It is not warm yet, but it is still. And stillness is the first step toward getting warm. You run your hand over the cloth one last time, feeling the oily, rough surface. It is a good roof. It will do its job. You have done your part to help it, and now you can move on to the next task. The lamp flickers. The tallow in the cup is getting low. You watch the flame dance for a second. It is a tiny point of heat in a world of ice. You feel a deep sense of peace. You are the watchman of this little space. You have checked the walls, and you have checked the roof. You are safe from the wind. The heavy canvas cover is doing what it was made to do. It is keeping the wild world out and keeping your small life in. You take a slow, deep breath, smelling the linseed oil and the dry wood. You are ready for the deep night to come. The air inside the wagon is now very still, but it is also very cold. It is the kind of cold that feels heavy, like a thick blanket made of ice sitting on your shoulders. You have closed the canvas flaps and patched the holes, but the air is still biting. To survive the deep night, you need more than just cloth and wood. You need a fire. In the center of your small wagon floor, you have a very special tool. It is a small sheet iron stove. A sheet iron stove is a box made of metal that has been hammered thin. This makes it light enough to carry in a wagon without making the load too heavy for the oxen. If it were made of thick cast iron, like the big stoves in a farmhouse, it would be much too heavy and might break the wagon's wooden axle. You reach out and touch the stove. The metal is cold, almost sticking to the skin of your fingers. It is a small, rectangular box sitting on four short legs. These legs are bolted to a piece of thick stone on the floor, so the heat does not burn the wooden boards of the wagon. You feel for the small door on the front. It has a tiny latch that clicks when you touch it. Click. The sound is sharp in the quiet wagon. You open the door, and it swings back with a soft, metallic groan. Inside, the stove is empty and dark, waiting for you to bring it to life. Now you must find your fuel. Out on the prairie, there are no trees. You cannot just go outside and chop a log of oak or pine. To keep warm, pioneers had to use what the land gave them. You reach into a large burlap sack tucked under a wooden bench. Inside are buffalo chips. This is a simple name for dried buffalo droppings. It might sound a bit strange or even a bit dirty to use this for a fire, but it was one of the most important things a pioneer could find. When the buffalo droppings sit in the hot sun for a long time, they dry out completely. They become hard and light, like a piece of cork or very dry wood. Most importantly, they do not smell bad when they burn. They smell like dry, sweet grass and a little bit of earth. You pick up a handful of the chips. They feel rough and crumbly in your hand, like a piece of very old bread. You carefully stack them inside the small stove. You put the smallest, driest pieces at the bottom. You remember a historical fact your father told you. Buffalo chips burn very hot, but they burn away quickly. You have to keep adding them all night if you want the heat to stay. This is the work of the night watchman. You cannot just fall into a deep sleep. You must keep an eye on the little metal box. Next, you reach for your matchbox. It is a small tin container, and you handle it as if it were made of gold. Inside are your lucifers. This is an old name for matches. These matches are long and made of white wood with a dark tip. You take one out. You can feel the tiny weight of it between your thumb and finger. You find a rough stone you keep just for this reason. You hold your breath, making the wagon very still. You strike the match against the stone. Scritch. The first strike does not work. You try again, a little harder this time. Scritch pop. A bright, tiny flame bursts into life. It is a beautiful color, a mix of bright yellow and deep blue at the bottom. For a second, it is the only light in the whole world. You hold your other hand around it to protect it from any tiny draft of air. The flame is small, but you can feel its heat on your fingertips immediately. You carefully reach into the stove and hold the match against the smallest piece of buffalo chip. The dry grass inside the chip catches the flame. A tiny curl of grey smoke rises up. You watch as the fire grows. It starts as a small orange glow. Then it begins to eat the fuel. You hear a soft crackling sound, like tiny footsteps on dry leaves. The smoke is pulled up into a thin metal pipe. This pipe goes from the top of the stove, up through a special hole in the canvas roof. The hole is lined with a ring of metal, so the hot pipe does not set the cloth on fire. You look up and see the pipe disappearing into the dark. Outside, that smoke is being whipped away by the blizzard, but inside, it is doing its job. You close the stove door and turn the small handle to lock it. Now, the fire is safe inside its metal home. You sit back on your heels and wait. For a few minutes, nothing seems to happen. Then, you hear it. Tink, tink, click. The metal of the stove is starting to get warm. As metal heats up, it grows just a little bit, and it makes these tiny popping sounds. It is the sound of the stove waking up. You hold your hands out toward the stove, not touching it, but just hovering near it. You feel a wave of warmth hit your palms. It is the most wonderful feeling in the world. The cold that was deep in your bones begins to pull back. It feels like the warmth is a soft liquid pouring over your skin. Your fingers, which were stiff and hard to move, start to feel soft and flexible again. You rub your hands together, and they no longer feel like dry paper. The orange light from the fire leaks out through the tiny air holes in the stove door. It casts a warm, flickering glow across the floor of the wagon. The shadows of your crates and bags are no longer scary. They look soft and friendly in the firelight. Now comes a moment of reflection. You sit in the dark, watching that tiny orange glow. You think about how amazing it is that a little bit of dried grass and a spark can change everything. Outside, the wind is still screaming. You can hear the snow hitting the canvas like 1,000 tiny claws trying to get in. The world out there is deadly. If you were standing out in that wind without a fire, the cold would take your life very quickly. But here, because of this little sheet iron box, you are winning. You are creating your own little summer inside a wooden box. The smell of the burning chips fills the wagon. It is a heavy, sleepy smell. It reminds you of being a child and sitting near a hearth. You feel your eyes getting a little bit heavy. The stress of the long day of walking starts to leave your muscles. Your shoulders drop down from your ears. You take a long, slow breath of the warm air. It feels good in your chest. It does not sting like the air outside. You reach into your sack and add some more buffalo chips to the fire. You do it quietly, moving with slow, steady hands. You want to keep the fire small but steady. If it gets too big, the stove will get too hot for such a small space. If it goes out, the cold will return in just a few minutes. You are the guardian of the flame tonight. It is a big job, but it is a simple one. You watch the way the light dances on the wooden hoops above you. The wagon feels smaller now, in a good way. It feels like a hug. You lean back against a sack of flour. The stove is clicking more often now. A steady rhythm that sounds like a heartbeat. You are safe. You are warm. The blizzard can roar all it wants, but it cannot get past the metal and the fire. You close your eyes for just a second, listening to the hiss of the fire and the howl of the wind. They are like two different songs playing at the same time. One is the song of the world, and one is the song of the home. Tonight, the song of the home is stronger. You stay there, bathed in the orange light, feeling the heat soak into your heavy wool clothes. The night shift is underway, and the fire is your most faithful friend. The heat from the small stove is a quiet gift. It moves through the wagon like a soft hand, touching the wooden walls and the sacks of grain. But even with the fire going, the floor of the wagon is still very cold. The wooden boards are thick, but they sit right above the iron axles and the frozen ground. To stay warm through the blizzard, you cannot just lie down on the wood. You need to build a nest. You need to make your bed. In the corner of the wagon, you have a large bag made of very strong cloth. In history, people called this a tick. A tick is just a giant pillowcase that is the size of a mattress. It is made of a special fabric called ticking. You run your hand over it. It is a heavy, stiff cotton cloth, usually decorated with thin blue and white stripes. This fabric is woven very tightly. It has to be strong because of what is inside. You reach down and grab the tick. It is filled with dry straw. Earlier in the year, when the sun was high and the fields were gold, you gathered this straw. You made sure it was perfectly dry before you stuffed it into the cloth. A historical fact you should know is that many pioneers would empty their ticks at the start of a long journey and refill them with fresh straw or even dried corn husks whenever they passed a farm. Fresh straw is bouncy and full of air, and air is what keeps you warm. You begin to shake the tick. It is heavy, and the straw inside makes a loud, rustling sound. Crinkle, crunch, crinkle. It sounds like someone walking through dry autumn leaves. You move the straw around with your hands, pushing the lumps away and making the middle flat. You want it to be thick, at least 4 or 5 inches of straw between you and the cold floorboards. This straw acts like a barrier. It traps the warmth from your body and does not let the cold from the ground reach you. Without this layer of dry grass, the floor would steal all your heat by morning. As you work, the smell of the straw fills the small space. It is a wonderful, dusty smell. It smells like a summer afternoon. It reminds you of the big barns back home and the way the sun looked coming through the cracks in the wood. Even though there is a blizzard outside, the smell of the straw makes you feel like the summer is still with you, hidden inside the cloth. You pat the mattress down, making it smooth and inviting. You move your grease lamp closer so you can see your work. The yellow light catches the dust motes dancing in the air. These tiny bits of straw dust float in the light like little stars. You watch them for a moment, letting your breath slow down. This is your moment of reflection. The wagon is so quiet now. The rustling of the straw has stopped. You are alone with your thoughts and the soft ticking of the cooling metal on the stove. You feel a deep sense of calm. You have spent all day walking and working, and now you are creating the one place where you can truly rest. You take a small wooden stick and use it to poke the corners of the tick. You want to make sure the straw is even. If there is a hole in the straw, you'll feel the cold wood of the floor against your hip or your shoulder in the night. You work slowly and carefully. In this small world, the details matter. A well-made bed is the difference between a good night and a night of shivering. You treat this task with respect, as if you were building a fine house. Once the tick is flat and full, you pull it toward the center of the wagon, near the stove, but not too close. You want to be close enough to feel the warmth of the fire, but you must be safe. A spark from the stove could be very dangerous if it landed on the dry straw. You check the distance twice. You place a heavy wooden crate between the stove and the bed, just to be sure. This crate holds your cooking pans, but tonight it is a shield. You look at the bed you have made. It looks humble and simple, but you know it is a piece of clever engineering. The straw is full of tiny pockets of air. These pockets are like little rooms that hold on to the heat. This is how animals stay warm in the winter, and it is how you will stay warm too. You reach down and press your hand into the mattress. It gives way under your weight and then pushes back softly. It is much more comfortable than the hard earth outside. You think about how people in big cities sleep in beds with feathers and fine silk sheets. Here on the prairie, you have straw and heavy cotton, but your bed feels just as valuable to you. It is your sanctuary. It is the place where the night shift ends and your dreams begin. You take your boots off, moving slowly, so you don't stir up too much dust. Your feet feel cold as soon as they touch the air, and you quickly tuck them under the edge of the tick. You notice a small tear in the ticking fabric near the seam. You look at it closely. It is only an inch long, but a few yellow pieces of straw are peeking out. You remember your ditty bag and the bone needle. You decide to fix it now rather than later. You don't want to lose your precious straw during the night. You take a few quick stitches, pulling the blue and white cloth together. The micro history of this fabric is interesting. It was designed to be so tough that even the sharp ends of straw or feathers couldn't poke through and scratch the sleeper. Your repair is quick and strong. The wagon rocks again as a fresh gust of wind hits the side. You hear the snow brushing against the wood. It sounds like a ghost trying to find a way in, but you are not worried. You have your walls, you have your fire, and now you have your soft, thick bed. You sit on the edge of the straw tick, feeling the weight cushions your tired body. The straw makes one last quiet crunch as you settle your weight. You look around the wagon one more time. The stove is still glowing a dull red. The shadows are soft and long. The air is starting to feel truly cozy. You have turned a cold, wooden box into a bedroom. You have used the grass of the earth and the skill of your hands to make a place of peace. You feel a sense of completion. The bed is ready. The straw is waiting to hold you. You take a long, slow breath and let the tension leave your neck. You are the watchman, and you have made your nest. The silence returns, deeper than before. You listen to the heartbeat of the storm outside and the soft rustle of the straw beneath you. You are safe. You are tucked away. The long, cold night is just beginning, but you have a warm place to hide from it. You reach out and dim the grease lamp just a little, letting the shadows grow. Your work for this hour is done. You have made a home out of straw and cloth, and it is enough. The straw bed is ready, and it feels soft beneath you, but the air above the mattress is still very cold. To survive a blizzard in a wagon, you need to understand the secret of layers. You do not just use one thick cover and hope for the best. You build a wall of cloth over your body, piece by piece. You reach into a large wooden chest at the end of your bed. This chest is made of cedar wood. Cedar has a very strong, sweet smell that bugs do not like. Because of this, your blankets stay safe from moths all year round. As you open the heavy lid, the scent of the wood fills the small space, mixing with the smell of the straw and the burning buffalo chips. You pull out the first layer. This is a heavy woolen blanket. It is not like the thin, soft blankets you might find in a shop today. This blanket is thick, scratchy, and very heavy. It is a deep cream color with bright stripes of red, yellow, green, and blue at the ends. This is a very famous kind of blanket used by almost every pioneer on the trail. A historical fact you should know is that these were often called point blankets. If you look closely at the edge, you will see several small, black lines woven into the wool. These are the points. They were not just for decoration. Back in the early days of trading, these marks told people how big the blanket was and how much it was worth in beaver furs. A 4-point blanket was the biggest and heaviest one you could buy. You hold the blanket up. It feels like it weighs as much as a small dog. This weight is important. The heaviness of the wool helps to press the warmth against your skin. You spread the 4-point blanket over the straw tick. You take your time to make sure it is even. The wool is rough against your hands. It feels a bit oily. This is because the wool still has some of the lanolin in it. Lanolin is a natural oil that comes from the sheep. It helps to keep the sheep dry in the rain, and it helps to keep your blanket from getting damp in the wagon. If the snow starts to blow in through a tiny gap, this wool will not get soaked easily. It is a smart tool made by nature. Now you reach for the second layer. These are your quilts. While the wool blanket is for strength and heat, the quilts are for comfort and memories. You have 3 of them, and you stack them one by one. You look at the top quilt. It is made in a pattern called log cabin. This is a micro-history detail that many people forget. Pioneers often chose patterns that reminded them of home. The center of each square on a log cabin quilt is a small piece of red cloth. This red square represents the hearth or the fireplace of a home. Around it are strips of light and dark cloth, representing the wooden logs and the shadows of the forest. By sleeping under this quilt, you are literally wrapping yourself in the idea of a warm house. You lay the quilt down carefully. You are building a sandwich of warmth. The straw is at the bottom, then the heavy wool, and then the layers of cotton and batting in the quilts. Batting is the soft, fluffy stuff inside a quilt. Pioneers used raw cotton, or even old, shredded rags to fill their quilts. All these layers work together to trap your body heat. Every time you move, you create a little bit of heat, and these blankets catch that heat and hold it close to you. It is like building a tiny, private room just for your body inside the larger room of the wagon. You stop for a moment of reflection. You sit on the edge of the bed and look at the pile of blankets. They look like a colorful mountain in the dim light of the grease lamp. You listen to the sounds of the night. The wind has changed its tune. Instead of a roar, it is now a high-pitched whistle, like a flute being played too loudly. You hear the wooden hoops of the wagon creak as the wind tries to lift the canvas. It is a strange feeling to be so close to such a powerful storm while being so still. You realize that without these pieces of cloth, you would not be able to stay here. These blankets are your armor. They are just as important as the wheels of the wagon or the oxen in the field. The silence inside the wagon feels very heavy now. You are the only thing moving in this small wooden world. You reach out and touch the red square at the center of one of the quilt blocks. It feels soft and worn. This quilt was made by your mother and your aunts during a long winter back east. You can almost see them sitting around a big wooden frame, their needles moving in and out of the cloth. They were thinking of you while they made it. They knew the trail would be cold. Every stitch was made with care to keep you safe. This thought makes you feel a different kind of warmth, a warmth that comes from the inside. You decide to add one more layer, just to be safe. You pull out a heavy animal hide. This is a buffalo robe. It is much thicker than the wool blanket. The fur is dark brown and very curly. It feels a bit stiff, but it is the warmest thing you own. You place it on the very top of the pile. The weight of the fur makes the straw mattress go crunch. It settles down. Now, your bed is nearly a foot thick with blankets and fur. You feel like a king in a palace made of fabric. You check the edges of the blankets. You tuck them in tightly around the sides of the straw tick. You want to create a mummy shape. If the blankets are loose, the cold air will find its way in through the gaps. You use your hands to smooth out any wrinkles. You want the surface to be as flat as possible so the heat stays even. Your hands are feeling warm now, just from the work of moving the heavy wool. You look at the stove, which is still clicking and glowing. The room is ready. You take off your heavy coat and lay it across the foot of the bed. You will use it as an extra layer for your feet. Keeping your feet warm is one of the hardest parts of sleeping in a wagon. If your toes get cold, your whole body will feel the chill. You think back to the long walk you took today. Your feet were tired and sore, but now they are going to have a rest. You look at the bed one last time. It looks so inviting. The colors of the wool and the quilts glow softly in the yellow light. You feel a sense of peace. You have done the work. You have sorted the blankets, layered them correctly, and made sure every point and every stitch is in its place. The blizzard can scream, and the snow can pile up against the wheels, but you have built a fortress of wool and cotton. You are the watchman of your own comfort, and you have done your job well. You sit back, feeling the soft weight of the air in the wagon. The night shift continues, but you are ready to rest. You know that when you slide under those layers, the cold will not be able to touch you. You have won this small battle against the winter. The grease lamp flickers, and you watch the light dance across the stripes of the wool blanket. The red, yellow, and green colors look deep and rich. They are the only bright things in this gray winter world. You take a slow breath, smelling the cedar and the clean wool. Everything is in its place. The blankets are waiting. You feel your heart beat a little slower, matching the steady rhythm of the wind outside. You are safe. You are tucked away. The layers are ready to hold you through the long, dark night. The wind outside is still very strong, but inside your small wagon, the air has become a little bit warmer. You have your bed ready and your fire is going. But there is one more thing your body needs to fight the cold. You need a simple night meal. When it is this cold, your body works very hard just to stay warm. It is like a second fire inside of you that needs fuel to keep burning. You look at your small stove. The flat top of the metal box is now hot enough to cook on. You reach into a dark corner of the wagon and pull out your heavy iron pot. This is the Dutch oven you touched earlier. It is perfect for making a simple, one meal that will stick to your ribs and keep the night chill away. You reach for a small wooden barrel. Inside is cornmeal. This is just corn that has been ground up into a coarse, yellow powder. A simple historical fact is that cornmeal was one of the most important foods for pioneers. It did not spoil easily. It was light to carry, and you could make many different things with it. Tonight, you are going to make something called mush. Some people also called it hasty pudding because it was so fast to make. You take a small cup made of tin and scoop out some of the yellow meal. It feels gritty and dry between your fingers, like sand from a riverbank. You can smell the faint, sweet scent of the corn. You take your water canteen. It is a round metal bottle covered in a piece of grey wool cloth. The cloth helps to keep the water from freezing, but tonight, the water inside is already very cold. You pour some into the iron pot. Glug, glug, glug. The sound is bright and clear in the quiet wagon. You place the pot on top of the stove. Now, you must wait. You sit back on your heels and watch the pot. This is your moment of atmospheric reflection. You watch the way the light from the stove reflects off the bottom of the black iron. You see the tiny bubbles start to form at the bottom of the water. They look like little pearls rising to the top. The wagon is so still that you can hear the very first sound of the water starting to simmer. It is a soft, hissing sound, like a secret being whispered. The wagon is starting to fill with steam. Because the air inside is so much warmer than the air outside, the steam turns into a light mist. It makes the canvas above you look soft and blurry. You watch a single drop of water form on the metal stovepipe and then slide down. You feel a deep sense of calm. The world outside is white and frozen, but here, you are making something hot. You are turning dry powder and cold water into life. You take a long, slow breath, and the warm, damp air feels good in your nose and throat. It is a break from the dry, dusty air of the trail. Once the water is boiling, you slowly pour the cornmeal into the pot. You have to do it very slowly, stirring all the time with a long wooden spoon. If you dump it all in at once, it will turn into hard lumps. You want it to be smooth and thick. As the meal hits the hot water, it begins to swell. The water changes from clear to a bright, sunny yellow. You stir in a small pinch of salt that you keep in a tiny leather pouch. Salt was a luxury on the trail, so you only use a little bit. It helps the flavor and keeps your body strong. The mush starts to thicken. It becomes heavy and starts to go pop. Pop as the bubbles of air break through the surface. You have to be careful not to let it splash on your skin, because it is very hot and sticky. You can smell the corn cooking now. It is a heavy, hearty smell. It smells like a warm kitchen in a house with a real floor. You stir and stir, feeling the muscles in your arm work. The steam rises up into your face, and for a moment, you cannot see anything else. You are wrapped in a warm, white cloud. It feels like a warm towel being held against your skin. Now, you reach for your micro-history detail, your spoon. This is not a metal spoon like we use today. It is a horn spoon. It was carved by hand from the horn of a cow or an ox. The horn was soaked in hot water until it was soft, then pressed into a shape and left to dry. It is a beautiful object. It has a smooth, creamy color with streaks of black and brown. The best thing about a horn spoon is that it does not get hot like a metal spoon does. You can leave it in the boiling pot, and the handle will stay cool to the touch. You run your thumb over the smooth, curved bowl of the spoon. It feels like polished stone. You scoop some of the thick, yellow mush into a wooden bowl. The bowl is made of maple wood and has been rubbed with oil until it shines. You hold the bowl in both of your hands. The warmth of the food moves through the wood and into your palms. It feels wonderful. Your hands have been cold all day, and this direct heat makes your fingers feel alive again. You sit down on the edge of your straw bed, tucking your feet under a blanket. You take your first bite. The mush is hot and simple. It does not have much flavor, but it is warm, and that is what matters most. As you swallow, you can feel the warmth moving down into your chest and then into your stomach. It feels like a small lantern has been lit inside of you. You take another bite and another. You move slowly, savoring the feeling. You are not in a rush. The blizzard is not going anywhere, and you have all night. You listen to the wind rattling the wooden slats of the wagon. The louder the wind gets, the better the warm food tastes. It is a way of telling the storm that you are okay. You think about the people back east who are eating fancy dinners at big tables. They have roasted meat and sweet cakes. But to you, this bowl of yellow cornmeal is the best meal you have ever had. It is the meal that will help you survive. You finish the bowl and scrape the last bits from the bottom with your horn spoon. The sound of the spoon against the wood is a soft skr-skr noise. You feel full and sleepy. The night shift is easier when your belly is full. You take a small bit of dry cloth and wipe your bowl and spoon. You do not use much water for cleaning because you need to save your water for drinking. You keep your things tidy, placing the bowl back in its crate and the spoon in your ditty bag. You feel a sense of pride in how you are managing. You are alone in a wooden box in the middle of a frozen sea of grass, but you are eating well and staying warm. You are a pioneer, and you know how to take care of yourself. You sit for a while longer, watching the last of the steam vanish into the shadows of the wagon. The fire in the stove is still humming. You feel the heavy, pleasant weight of the food in your stomach. Your heart seems to beat a little more strongly now. You are ready for the next part of the night. You have fed the fire in the stove, and you have fed the fire in your body. You take a slow, deep breath, smelling the last traces of the cooked corn. The wagon is quiet, the air is warm, and you are safe. The blizzard continues to roar, but inside your small home there is peace. You lean back against your pile of blankets, feeling the quiet strength of a person who is well prepared. The night is long, but you have the energy to face it. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the warmth of the meal spread all the way to your toes. You are doing well. The watch continues. The warm meal in your stomach has made you feel a little sleepy, but you cannot go to sleep quite yet. There is one more very important thing you must do to make sure you stay warm until the sun comes up. Even with all those heavy woolen blankets and the buffalo robe, the cold of the blizzard has a way of creeping into the bed from the bottom. Your feet are the furthest part of your body from your heart, and they are often the first things to get cold. In the 1800s, people did not have rubber hot water bottles or electric blankets. Instead, they used the most simple and honest thing the earth provides: stones. You reach toward the base of your small metal stove. There, Sitting in the warmest spot on the stone floor guard are two large, flat rocks. You found these rocks many weeks ago when the wagon train crossed a shallow river. You looked for rocks that were smooth and heavy, about the size of a large loaf of bread. A simple historical fact you should know is that pioneers often looked for a special kind of rock called soapstone for this very reason. Soapstone is a soft, heavy rock that is very good at soaking up heat and holding onto it for a long time. It does not get hot as fast as iron, but once it is warm, it stays warm for hours and hours. If you cannot find soapstone, a regular river rock will do, as long as it is solid and has no cracks. You reach out and touch one of the stones with a bare finger. Ting! You pull your hand back quickly. The stone is very hot. It has been sitting near the fire all evening, drinking in the heat from the burning buffalo chips. It is now a storehouse of warmth. But you cannot just put a hot stone into your bed. It would be too hot for your skin, and it might even scorch your beautiful woolen blankets. You need to prepare the stones for their night's work. You reach into your ditty bag and pull out 2 pieces of thick, grey flannel cloth. This is your micro-history detail for this hour, the stone wrap. These are simple sleeves made of extra cloth, sewn specifically to hold the footstones. The flannel is soft and fuzzy on both sides. You take a pair of heavy leather gloves and put them on to protect your hands. You pick up the first stone. It is surprisingly heavy. It feels like a solid weight of pure heat in your hands. You carefully slide the hot stone into the flannel sleeve. As the hot stone touches the cloth, you can smell something wonderful. It is the smell of warm cotton and a little bit of dust. It is a very dry smell. It reminds you of laundry hanging in the sun. You pull the drawstring of the flannel sleeve tight and tie it with a simple knot. Now, the stone is safe. You can hold it against your chest, and it feels like a warm, soft hug instead of a burning piece of rock. You do the same with the second stone, sliding it into its own grey sleeve. Now, you move to your bed. You lift the edge of the heavy buffalo robe and the 3 layers of quilts. You slide the 2 wrapped stones all the way down to the very bottom of the bed, right where your feet will be. You place them about 6 inches apart. You can feel the warmth starting to move through the straw of the mattress immediately. It is like planting to warm seeds in a field of ice. You take a moment of atmospheric reflection. You sit on the edge of the bed, perfectly still. The only light comes from the tiny cracks in the stove and the very dim glow of your grease lamp. You listen to the sounds of the wagon. The wind is still pushing against the canvas, making it hum like a giant bee. But inside, it is so quiet that you can hear the stones. As they settle into the straw, they make a tiny crinkle sound. You watch the steam from your breath drift toward the back of the wagon. You feel very small, but you also feel very clever. You have taken a cold rock from a river and turned it into a heater. It is a simple kind of magic. You think about how the heat moves. This is the night shift of the stones. While you are sleeping and your fire in the stove slowly dies down, these rocks will still be working. They will be releasing their heat bit by bit, keeping the air under your blankets warm. Without them, the cold would find its way through the bottom of the wagon and turn your toes to ice by 3 in the morning. But with the stones, you have a secret weapon. You look at your boots sitting on the floor. They look cold and stiff. You decide to do one more helpful thing. You move your boots closer to the stove, but not too close, so the leather does not dry out and crack. Then, you take a third, smaller stone, a little one you keep for your hands, and you wrap it in a spare woolen sock. You will hold this small stone in your hands under the covers. The air in the wagon is now at its warmest point. The stove has been burning for an hour. The meal is done, and the stones are in the bed. You feel a deep sense of readiness. You are like a clock that has been wound up and is now ready to tick through the night. You look at the heavy canvas above you. You can see the dark shape of a wooden hoop. It looks strong and steady. You feel a great deal of respect for the people who thought of these simple ways to stay alive. They didn't have much, but they knew how to use what they had. You rub your hands together one last time. They are warm and soft now. You reach for the grease lamp and carefully blow it out. Whoosh! The wagon is plunged into darkness, except for the tiny orange lines of light around the stove door. The darkness feels heavy, like a velvet curtain has been dropped over your eyes. But it is not a scary darkness. It is a protective one. In the dark, the wind sounds a little further away. You slide your legs under the heavy layers of the bed. You move slowly, feeling the weight of the quilt settle over your hips and chest. Your feet reach down, searching for the warmth. And then, you find it. Your cold toes touch the soft flannel sleeves of the stones. The feeling is incredible. It is a sharp, clean heat that starts at your toes and moves all the way up your legs to your heart. It makes your whole body relax at once. You feel your muscles let go of the tension of the day. You are no longer fighting the cold. You are resting in the warmth. You lie there in the dark, feeling the night shift begin. You are the watchman, but for now, your job is just to stay under the covers and keep the heat in. You listen to the blizzard. It sounds like the world is being torn apart outside. But you are tucked into a nest of straw and wool with hot river stones at your feet. You feel a deep sense of safety. You are a pioneer, and you have built a home out of a wagon. You have tamed the cold with a fire and a few grey rocks. The silence returns, broken only by the steady click-clack of the metal stove. It begins to cool very slowly. You close your eyes. The warmth from the stones is like a gentle hand holding your feet. You feel your breath becoming slow and deep. You are safe. You are warm. The long, white night is outside, but the light of the fire is inside you. You have done everything you can. The watch is steady. You let the feeling of the warm flannel carry you towards sleep, knowing that the stones will keep their promise and stay warm until the morning light. The warm meal in your stomach has made you feel a little sleepy, but you cannot go to sleep quite yet. There is one more very important thing you must do to make sure you stay warm until the sun comes up. Even with all those heavy woolen blankets and the buffalo robe, the cold of the blizzard has a way of creeping into the bed from the bottom. Your feet are the furthest part of your body from your heart, and they are often the first things to get cold. In the 1800s, people did not have rubber hot water bottles or electric blankets. Instead, they used the most simple and honest thing the earth provides: stones. You reach toward the base of your small metal stove. There, sitting in the warmest spot on the stone floor guard, are two large, flat rocks. You found these rocks many weeks ago when the wagon train crossed a shallow river. You looked for rocks that were smooth and heavy, about the size of a large loaf of bread. A simple historical fact you should know is that pioneers often looked for a special kind of rock called soapstone for this very reason. Soapstone is a soft, heavy rock that is very good at soaking up heat and holding onto it for a long time. It does not get hot as fast as iron, but once it is warm, it stays warm for hours and hours. If you cannot find soapstone, a regular river rock will do, as long as it is solid and has no cracks. You reach out and touch one of the stones with a bare finger. Ting! You pull your hand back quickly. The stone is very hot. It has been sitting near the fire all evening, drinking in the heat from the burning buffalo chips. It is now a storehouse of warmth. But you cannot just put a hot stone into your bed. It would be too hot for your skin, and it might even scorch your beautiful woolen blankets. You need to prepare the stones for their night's work. You reach into your ditty bag and pull out 2 pieces of thick, grey flannel cloth. This is your micro-history detail for this hour, the stone wrap. These are simple sleeves made of extra cloth, sewn specifically to hold the footstones. The flannel is soft and fuzzy on both sides. You take a pair of heavy leather gloves and put them on to protect your hands. You pick up the first stone. It is surprisingly heavy. It feels like a solid weight of pure heat in your hands. You carefully slide the hot stone into the flannel sleeve. As the hot stone touches the cloth, you can smell something wonderful. It is the smell of warm cotton and a little bit of dust. It is a very dry smell. It reminds you of laundry hanging in the sun. You pull the drawstring of the flannel sleeve tight and tie it with a simple knot. Now, the stone is safe. You can hold it against your chest, and it feels like a warm, soft hug instead of a burning piece of rock. You do the same with the second stone, sliding it into its own grey sleeve. Now, you move to your bed. You lift the edge of the heavy buffalo robe and the 3 layers of quilts. You slide the 2 wrapped stones all the way down to the very bottom of the bed, right where your feet will be. You place them about 6 inches apart. You can feel the warmth starting to move through the straw of the mattress immediately. It is like planting to warm seeds in a field of ice. You take a moment of atmospheric reflection. You sit on the edge of the bed, perfectly still. The only light comes from the tiny cracks in the stove and the very dim glow of your grease lamp. You listen to the sounds of the wagon. The wind is still pushing against the canvas, making it hum like a giant bee. But inside, it is so quiet that you can hear the stones. As they settle into the straw, they make a tiny crinkle sound. You watch the steam from your breath drift toward the back of the wagon. You feel very small, but you also feel very clever. You have taken a cold rock from a river and turned it into a heater. It is a simple kind of magic. You think about how the heat moves. This is the night shift of the stones. While you are sleeping and your fire in the stove slowly dies down, these rocks will still be working. They will be releasing their heat bit by bit, keeping the air under your blankets warm. Without them, the cold would find its way through the bottom of the wagon and turn your toes to ice by 3 in the morning. But with the stones, you have a secret weapon. You look at your boots sitting on the floor. They look cold and stiff. You decide to do one more helpful thing. You move your boots closer to the stove, but not too close, so the leather does not dry out and crack. Then, you take a third, smaller stone, a little one you keep for your hands, and you wrap it in a spare woolen sock. You will hold this small stone in your hands under the covers. The air in the wagon is now at its warmest point. The stove has been burning for an hour. The meal is done, and the stones are in the bed. You feel a deep sense of readiness. You are like a clock that has been wound up and is now ready to tick through the night. You look at the heavy canvas above you. You can see the dark shape of a wooden hoop. It looks strong and steady. You feel a great deal of respect for the people who thought of these simple ways to stay alive. They didn't have much, but they knew how to use what they had. You rub your hands together one last time. They are warm and soft now. You reach for the grease lamp and carefully blow it out. Whoosh! The wagon is plunged into darkness, except for the tiny orange lines of light around the stove door. The darkness feels heavy, like a velvet curtain has been dropped over your eyes. But it is not a scary darkness. It is a protective one. In the dark, the wind sounds a little further away. You slide your legs under the heavy layers of the bed. You move slowly, feeling the weight of the quilts settle over your hips and chest. Your feet reach down, searching for the warmth. And then, you find it. Your cold toes touch the soft flannel sleeves of the stones. Ah, the feeling is incredible. It is a sharp, clean heat that starts at your toes and moves all the way up your legs to your heart. It makes your whole body relax at once. You feel your muscles let go of the tension of the day. You are no longer fighting the cold. You are resting in the warmth. You lie there in the dark, feeling the night shift begin. You are the watchman, but for now, your job is just to stay under the covers and keep the heat in. You listen to the blizzard. It sounds like the world is being torn apart outside. But you are tucked into a nest of straw and wool with hot river stones at your feet. You feel a deep sense of safety. You are a pioneer, and you have built a home out of a wagon. You have tamed the cold with a fire and a few grey rocks. The silence returns, broken only by the steady click-clack of the metal stove. It begins to cool very slowly. You close your eyes. The warmth from the stones is like a gentle hand holding your feet. You feel your breath becoming slow and deep. You are safe. You are warm. The long, white night is outside, but the light of the fire is inside you. You have done everything you can. The watch is steady. You let the feeling of the warm flannel carry you towards sleep, knowing that the stones will keep their promise and stay warm until the morning light. The wind is no longer just a sound. It is a physical force that you can feel through the very floor of the wagon. You are tucked deep under your layers of wool and buffalo fur, with the hot stones at your feet. But you remain wide awake. You are listening. On the prairie, the wind is the voice of the world. In the summer, it whispers through the tall grass, but in the middle of a winter blizzard, it howls like 1,000 hungry wolves. It is a high-pitched, lonely sound that never seems to stop. It hits the flat side of your wagon with a heavy thud, making the whole wooden frame shiver and shake. You lie very still, your head resting on a small pillow stuffed with dried down feathers. You can feel the vibration of the storm in your bones. It is a strange feeling to be so motionless, while the air outside is moving at such a terrifying speed. You think about the night shift and how the wind never takes a break. It works all through the dark hours, pushing and pulling at everything in its path. You hear it whistling through the spokes of the heavy wooden wheels beneath you. You hear it singing a sharp, thin note as it passes over the metal stovepipe on the roof. There is a historical fact that people often forget about the Great Plains. There is nothing to stop the wind. Between the North Pole and your little wagon, there are almost no trees, no mountains, and no tall buildings. The wind gathers speed for hundreds of miles, getting stronger and colder with every inch of ground it covers. Pioneers called these winds northers. A norther is a wind that comes straight down from the north, bringing a wall of ice with it. When a norther hits, the temperature can drop 40 degrees in just 1 hour. You can feel that drop now. Even inside your blankets, the air near your nose feels sharp and thin. You pull the blankets up so that only your eyes and nose are peeking out. You are creating a tiny cave of warm air. Every time you breathe out, you feel the warmth of your own breath hit the wool of the blanket. It stays there for a second, a small gift of heat, before it vanishes. You listen to the canvas roof again. The sound has changed. Earlier, it was a soft flapping. Now, the wind is so strong that the canvas is pulled tight, like the skin of a drum. It makes a low, humming vibration that you can feel in your ears. It is a deep, heavy sound that reminds you of the power of the earth. In the middle of this roaring, you hear a new sound. It is a sharp crack, like a dry branch breaking. You go very still, holding your breath. You wonder if one of the wooden hoops has snapped under the pressure. You wait, your heart beating a little faster. Then you hear it again, a slow, rhythmic creak, creak, creak. You realize it is just the wagon bed shifting on its leather springs. The wind is trying to lift the wagon, and the heavy wood is fighting back. You feel a deep respect for the men who built this wagon. They used seasoned oak and hickory, woods that are famous for being strong and flexible. They knew that one day, this wood would have to stand against a giant. You reach out a hand from under the covers, just for a second, to touch the wooden side of the wagon. The wood feels like a wall of ice. It is amazing to think that only 2 inches of timber are separating you from a world that could freeze a person in minutes. You pull your hand back into the warmth quickly. You think about your micro-history detail, the wagon grease. To keep the wheels turning through the mud and dust of the summer, you have to use a thick, black grease made of pine tar and lard. Now, in the deep cold, that grease has turned hard as a rock. If you had to move this wagon right now, the wheels wouldn't even turn. They are locked in place by the frozen grease and the biting wind. You find yourself falling into a moment of atmospheric reflection. You are not thinking about the trail or the chores you have to do tomorrow. You are just listening to the layers of sound. There is the high whistle of the wind in the ropes. There is the low rumble of the wind against the canvas. There is the sharp tink-tink of frozen snow hitting the wood. And underneath it all, there is the deep, heavy silence of the snowy earth. It is a symphony of the winter. It is a scary sound, yes, but it is also very beautiful. It reminds you that you are a part of something very big. You are a tiny spark of life in a vast, frozen kingdom. The wind seems to have a personality. Sometimes it sounds angry, throwing handfuls of ice against the wagon as if it wants to get in. Other times, it sounds tired, fading away into a low moan before it gathers its strength to scream again. You think about the night shift watchmen who are outside right now. In a wagon train, there is always someone on guard, even in a blizzard. They wrap themselves in every piece of fur they own and walk in small circles to keep their blood moving. You feel a surge of gratitude for them. While you are warm in your bed of straw, they are out there, facing the wind head-on to make sure the camp stays safe. You remember a story an old traveler told you. He said the wind on the prairie can make a person feel very lonely if they aren't careful. It is so loud and so constant that it fills up your whole head, but you don't feel lonely tonight. You feel tucked in. You feel like a seed buried deep under the snow, waiting for the spring. The louder the wind roars, the more you appreciate the simple things you have, the dry straw, the heavy wool, and the sturdy wood. You are learning the greatest lesson of the pioneer, how to find peace in the middle of a storm. You shift your weight slightly, and the straw mattress makes a soft crunch beneath you. The sound is a reminder of the summer sun that grew that straw. It is a warm sound in a cold world. You think about the wind as a giant broom, sweeping the prairie clean of last year's grass and making room for the new green shoots that will come in the spring. The blizzard is not an enemy. It is just the way the world changes its clothes. You take a slow, deep breath. The air inside your blanket cave is warm and smells of clean wool. The wagon rocks again, a long, slow tilt to the left. You feel the weight of the wagon settle back down. You are safe. The wind can push, but the wagon is heavy with your flour, your tools, and your life. It is anchored to the earth. You close your eyes and let the sound of the storm become a lullaby. It is a very loud lullaby, but it has a rhythm to it that you are starting to understand. It is the heartbeat of the winter. You think about the morning. When the sun comes up, the world will look completely different. The brown grass will be gone, replaced by waves of white snow. But that is a worrying for tomorrow. For now, your only job is to stay still and listen to the night shift of the wind. You let your muscles go soft. You feel the heat from the stones at your feet, still steady and strong. The wind continues to howl, but it feels further away now, as if you are drifting down into a deep, quiet well. You are the watchman of your own dreams, and the wind is just the music of the night. You are safe in your wooden shell. The storm is outside, and you are inside. And that is exactly how it should be. The watch is steady, and the night moves on. While the wind roars around the wagon, your thoughts turn to the creatures that make your journey possible. Outside, in the middle of the freezing circle of wagons, the oxen are standing. These animals are the heart of the pioneer trail. Without them, your wagon is just a heavy box that cannot move. In a blizzard, saving the work animals is just as important as keeping yourself warm. If the oxen freeze or get too weak to walk, you will be stranded on the prairie forever. You lie in the dark, listening for the sounds of the herd over the whistling wind. Oxen are very large, strong cattle. They are patient and brave. A historical fact about these animals is that they were often chosen over horses or mules because they were stronger and could eat the rough prairie grass. They do not need expensive grain to keep going, but even a strong ox has limits. When the north is blowing, the temperature can kill an animal if it is not protected. You remember the work you did just as the sun was setting to make sure they would survive this night. You and the other travelers moved the oxen into the very center of the wagon circle. By huddling the animals together, you created a living heater. The oxen stand shoulder to shoulder, their large bodies touching. This helps them share their body heat. Because they are so big, they hold a lot of warmth inside them. When they stand close together, the air between them stays much warmer than the air outside the circle. You can picture them now, their heads hanging low and their eyes closed, waiting for the storm to pass. You think about your micro-history detail. The ox blankets, not everyone had them, but you made sure to bring 2 for your lead pair. These are not fancy blankets like the ones on your bed. They are made of very heavy, oily burlap or old pieces of canvas from a broken wagon cover. You tied them over the backs of your oxen using thick ropes. This helps to keep the snow from sitting directly on their skin. When snow melts on an animal's back, it takes away their heat very fast. The blankets act like a roof for the oxen, keeping them dry and keeping the wind from reaching their hides. In the dark of the wagon, you listen closely. Every now and then, you hear a deep, low moo or the sound of a heavy hoof stamping the frozen ground. This is a good sign. It means the animals are awake and moving their blood. If it gets too quiet, the watchman outside will walk among them to make them stand up and move a little. If an ox lies down in a blizzard, the snow can bury it, and it might never get back up. The night shift for the animals is a hard one. They have to stand 4 hours in the cold, but they are built for this life. Their skin is very thick, and they grow a heavy coat of hair in the autumn to prepare for the winter. You feel a moment of reflection as you think about the bond between a pioneer and their animals. You spend every day walking beside them. You talk to them to keep them moving. You know the way they tilt their heads when they are tired. They are not just tools. They are your partners. You feel a bit of guilt being in your warm bed while they are out in the snow, but you know you have done everything you can. You gave them extra hay before the storm hit, which acts like wood for their internal fire. As they digest the dry grass, it creates heat inside their big bellies. The wind hits the wagon again, and you think about the ice. One of the biggest dangers for the oxen is ice foot. This happens when the wet snow gets stuck between their hooves and turns into a hard ball of ice. It makes it very hard for them to stand or walk. Earlier, you used a small metal pick to clean their hooves, making sure they were clear and healthy. You even rubbed a little bit of animal fat on the tender parts of their feet to protect them from the biting frost. It was a cold, messy job, but it was necessary. You listened to the rhythm of the storm. The oxen are like the wagons. They are sturdy and slow. They do not panic in the wind. They just stand and wait. This patience is a lesson for you. You realize that survival is often about just staying still and holding on. You think about the ox yoke hanging on the side of the wagon. It is a heavy piece of wood that connects the 2 animals together. Tonight, they are connected by something else, the need to stay alive. They are a team, even when they are not pulling a load. You remember an old saying that a pioneer is only as fast as his slowest ox. Tonight, you are only as safe as your oxen are warm. You find yourself praying that the wind doesn't get any stronger. You imagine the watchman outside, his breath turning to ice on his beard, moving slowly through the herd. He checks the ropes on the blankets and pats the thick necks of the beasts. It is a quiet, cold world out there, but there is a lot of life in the middle of that circle. You shift under your buffalo robe, feeling the warmth of the hot stones. The thought of the oxen makes you appreciate your shelter even more. You are lucky to have these wooden walls. You take a slow breath and let the sound of the stamping hooves soothe you. The animals are okay. They are strong, and they are together. You have guarded them as well as you could, and now nature must do the rest. The night shift continues, and the world remains white and wild. But in the center of the camp, there is a heart of warmth made of fur, breath, and heavy bodies. You are the watchman of the wagon, but the oxen are the guardians of the journey. You close your eyes, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the big, quiet creatures outside. The storm can scream, but the herd will stand. You drift a little closer to sleep, knowing that the morning will find the oxen still there, waiting to pull you toward the west once again. The watch is steady. The camp is safe. The fire in the stove has settled into a soft, red glow. The wagon is at its quietest now, even though the wind is still trying to find its way through the canvas. You reach out your hand and pull the edge of the top layer closer to your chin. This is the buffalo robe. It is the heaviest and warmest thing in the wagon. Before you came out onto the trail, you might have used blankets made only of wool, but out here, you quickly learned that nothing keeps out the frost like the thick fur of a buffalo. A buffalo robe is not just a blanket, it is the whole skin of a very large animal. A historical fact you might find interesting is that these robes were often traded for between the pioneers and the Native American tribes. The tribes knew exactly how to prepare the skins, so they would stay soft for years. They would scrape the inside of the skin until it was thin and flexible, almost like soft leather. Then they would use natural oils to keep it from getting stiff. When you hold it, it feels much heavier than any quilt. The fur side is usually turned inward toward your body, while the smooth leather side faces the air. You feel the texture of the fur against your neck. It is very thick and curly, like the wool on a sheep, but much tougher. This fur is designed by nature to keep a massive animal alive in a blizzard where the snow is up to its chest. When you wrap yourself in it, you are stealing that secret. The fur traps a very large amount of air between the tiny hairs. Because the air cannot move, it stays warm. It creates a pocket of summer-like heat right against your skin. You feel your shoulders finally relax as the robe settles over you like a heavy, warm cloud. You reach down and touch the edge of the robe. This is your micro-history detail. The tail mark. Many pioneers liked to keep the tail of the buffalo on the robe or a small bit of the mane near the top. It was a way of showing that the robe was real and high quality. You run your fingers over the coarse hairs of the mane. It feels like a stiff brush. This part of the robe is usually at the very top, near your head, and it helps to block the drafts that come in through the front of the wagon. You fall into a moment of atmospheric reflection. You lie perfectly still, listening to the tiny sounds of the fur. As you move, the leather makes a soft whisk-whisk sound against your woolen blankets. It is a very comforting noise. It sounds like safety. You look up at the dark shapes of the wagon hoops. You feel like you are inside a small cave, or perhaps a cocoon. The buffalo robe is your final wall. The wind can shake the wagon, the snow can pile up outside, and the temperature can drop below zero. But inside this circle of fur, you are as warm as a hearth. You think about the buffalo themselves. Out there on the big, open prairie, they are standing in this very same storm. They turn their heads away from the wind and just wait. They don't run. They don't hide. They just stand still and let their thick coats do the work. You are doing the same thing now. You are practicing the pioneer art of waiting. You realize that you don't need to do anything else tonight. You have done the work of the day. And now the night shift is about simply existing. The weight of the robe is very important. It presses down on your body, which helps your heart stay calm. In the middle of a scary storm, having something heavy on top of you makes you feel grounded. It makes you feel like the wind cannot carry you away. You take a deep, slow breath, and the air you breathe in is warm because it has been trapped near your face by the high collar of the robe. It smells faintly of wood smoke and old leather. It is a very old smell, one that people have known for thousands of years. You remember the first time you felt a buffalo robe. You thought it was too big and too heavy to be useful. But after your first night on the trail, you realized it was worth its weight in gold. You wouldn't trade it for 100 silk sheets. Out here, beauty is found in things that work. A thick skin that keeps a person from freezing is the most beautiful thing in the world. You pull the edges of the robe under your sides, tucking yourself in so that no cold air can sneak in from the bottom. The silence of the wagon is deep. You can no longer hear the stove clicking because the metal has finished cooling. The only sound is the steady hush-hush of the snow on the canvas. You feel the heat from the stones at your feet, and you feel the heavy protection of the buffalo fur on your chest. You are perfectly balanced. You are not too hot, and you are not too cold. You are just right. You feel a sense of deep gratitude for the animal that gave its coat to keep you alive. You close your eyes. In the darkness, you can almost imagine the wide prairie stretching out 4 miles in every direction. It is a white, empty world, but you are not part of that emptiness. You are in your own little world of warmth. The buffalo robe is like a promise. It promises that you will see the morning. It promises that the cold will stay on the outside. You let your mind drift, thinking of nothing but the feeling of the fur and the steady beat of your own heart. The watch is quiet. The world is frozen, but you are safe and snug in your robe of fur. Inside the wagon, the space is very small, and tonight, that is a very good thing. You are not alone in this wooden box. Your family is tucked in beside you. On the pioneer trail, people did not sleep in separate rooms or even separate beds when the weather turned deadly. They followed the most basic rule of nature, huddling for extra heat. By staying close together under the same heavy pile of blankets and buffalo robes, you can share the warmth of your bodies. In a blizzard, another person is the best heater you could ever have. You move slightly to the left, feeling the solid, warm presence of your family member next to you. You are all lying in a row on the straw mattress. This way of sleeping was very common and had a special name. A historical fact you might like to know that pioneers called the spooning. Just like spoons in a kitchen drawer, you all face the same direction, with your backs nestled against the person behind you. If one person needs to turn over in the night, they might call out spoon, and everyone would turn at the same time to stay tucked in tight. It kept the cold air from getting between you. You can feel the steady rhythm of their breathing. It is a slow, calm sound that matches your own. Each person acts like a small furnace, burning the food they ate for dinner and turning it into heat. When you stay close, that heat does not vanish into the air. It stays trapped under the blankets. You can feel the warmth from their back moving through your wool shirt. It is a deep, living heat that a stove can never quite match. It makes you feel safe, not just because of the temperature, but because you know you are not facing the storm by yourself. You think about your micro-history detail. The nightcap. Everyone in the family is wearing one. These are simple hats made of soft, knitted wool or thick flannel. They have long tails that can be tucked under the chin. Because your heads are the only part of your bodies not covered by the buffalo robe, a lot of heat could escape from the top of your skull. By wearing these caps, you keep that heat inside. You can feel the soft wool of your cap pulled down low over your ears, keeping them warm even when a stray draft of wind whistles through the wagon. You fall into a moment of atmospheric reflection. The wagon is full of the soft sounds of a family at rest. There is a tiny sigh from the person next to you. There is the rustle of the straw as someone shifts their feet to find the hot stones. There is the smell of clean wool, wood smoke, and the scent of the people you love. Even though there is a terrifying blizzard outside, inside the wagon, there is a feeling of great peace. You realize that this is what home really means. It is not about the building. It is about the people who keep each other warm. The wind gives the wagon a particularly hard shove. You feel the person next to you stiffen for a second, then relax as the wagon stays steady. You reach out a hand under the blankets and find their hand. It is warm and dry. You give it a little squeeze, a silent way of saying, "I am here, and we are safe." In the dark, you don't need words. The closeness of your bodies tells the whole story. You are a team, a small pack of humans holding out against the white world of the prairie. You think about how big the world is outside. There are miles and miles of empty snow and ice. If you were out there alone, the cold would be a giant. But here, in the huddle, the cold feels smaller. It is something you can manage. You remember the stories of the old days, when people would say that two can sleep as warm as three, but four is better than all. Every extra person adds more heat to the bed. It is a simple math that keeps people alive when the thermometer stops working. You adjust the heavy buffalo robe, pulling it over your family's shoulders to make sure no one is left out. The weight of the robe is even heavier with everyone under it, pressing you all down into the straw. It is a comforting weight. It feels like the earth itself is holding you in its hands. You listen to the wind again. It sounds like it is frustrated, as if it knows it cannot get to you. It screams at the canvas and rattles the wheels, but the huddle is too strong. You feel your eyes getting very heavy. The warmth of the person next to you is like a gentle drug, making your brain feel soft and sleepy. Your heart rate slows down to match the breathing of the family. You are all moving as one now, a single living thing hidden in the straw. The night shift is easy when you share the load. You don't have to be the only one watching. You are all guarding each other just by being there. You think about the morning. You will have to wake up and face the cold, dig out the wheels, and check on the oxen. But that is many hours away. For now, there is only the dark, the warmth of the huddle, and the sound of the storm. You let yourself drift, feeling the edges of your mind go fuzzy. You are warm from your toes to your head. You are safe in the middle of your family. The watch is shared, and the night is moving on. As you lie in the quiet huddle of your family, you notice a change in the sounds around you. The sharp tink-tink of the frozen snow hitting the canvas are stopped. In its place is a soft, heavy silence. But this is not the silence of the storm ending. It is the silence of the snow piling up. On the prairie, a blizzard does not just bring wind. It brings a sea of white that covers everything. You can feel the weight of it now. The canvas roof above your head is no longer flapping. It is being pressed down by a thick, heavy blanket of snow. A historical fact about these prairie blizzards is that the snow does not fall straight down. The wind is so strong that it blows the snow sideways, packing it into every crack and corner. When the wind hits the side of a wagon, it creates a drift. A drift is a mountain of snow that builds up against an object. By now, the snow has likely reached the top of the wooden wheels. It is growing higher and higher, wrapping your wagon in a cold, white hug. While snow is cold to the touch, it actually helps to keep you warm once it gets thick enough. This sounds strange, but it is true. Pioneers knew that a thick layer of snow acts like a wall of insulation. Insulation is something that keeps heat from escaping, just like the straw in your mattress or the wool in your blankets. The snow is full of tiny pockets of air. Once the snow covers the sides of the wagon and piles up on the roof, it blocks the wind completely. The howling of the storm sounds much further away now. It is a muffled, dull roar, like the sound of the ocean heard through a thick wall. Inside the wagon, the air becomes very still and calm. You reach up and gently touch the canvas ceiling with your fingertips. Usually, the cloth is springy and moves when you touch it, but now it feels hard and heavy. You can feel the cold of the snow through the fabric, but you can also feel the solidness of it. You have to be careful, though. You take a small wooden stick and gently poke the canvas between the hoops. You are checking to make sure the weight of the snow isn't getting too heavy. If too much snow gathers on top, it could break the wooden hoops or tear the cloth. You listen for the sound of the snow sliding off the sides. Sharp. A big pile of it falls away, and you feel the wagon lighten for a moment. Your micro-history detail for this hour is a stove clearer, because the snow is piling up so high, it could cover the top of your metal stove pipe. If the pipe gets blocked, the smoke from the fire will come back inside the wagon instead of going out. This is very dangerous. Every few hours, the watchman must take a long pole and poke it through the hole in the roof to make sure the pipe is clear of snow. You can hear the watchman doing this now. You hear a soft thump on the roof and the sound of metal scraping against ice. It is a comforting sound. It means your breathing hole is open, and you can keep your fire going if you need to. You fall into a moment of atmospheric reflection. You look at the edges of the canvas where it meets the wooden sides. You see a tiny line of white frost forming on the inside of the wood. It looks like beautiful lace made of ice. Even though you are safe and warm under your buffalo robe, the frost is a reminder of how powerful the winter is. It is trying to grow inside your home. You watch it for a while, seeing how the light from the tiny stove embers makes the ice crystals sparkle. It is a quiet, cold beauty that only a pioneer ever gets to see. The wagon feels very small now, almost like a burrow under the earth. You think about the rabbits and the prairie dogs that live in holes beneath the grass. They are safe in the dark, with the snow piled high above them. You are doing the same thing. You are hiding from the world until the sun comes back. The weight of the snow on the roof makes the wagon feel very sturdy. It no longer rocks as much when the wind hits it. The snow is like a heavy anchor, holding you tight to the frozen ground. You think about the morning and what it will be like to open the back flap. You will probably find a solid wall of white. You will have to use your shovel to dig a path out just to see the sky. It is a lot of work, but for now, you don't have to worry about it. The night shift is about staying under the cover. You listen to the breath of your family. It is steady and warm. The air in the wagon is getting a bit thin and heavy, which is a sign that the snow is sealing you in. You pull the blanket down an inch from your face to make sure you have plenty of fresh air. The silence is so deep now that you can hear the tiny tick-tick of the ice crystals growing on the metal latch of the door. It is a very lonely sound, but you are not lonely. You are part of the wagon, and the wagon is part of the snow. You feel a strange sense of peace. The storm is doing its worst, but it is also giving you a gift. It is building a wall of white to protect you from its own wind. You are safe in your icy cocoon. You let your head sink back into the feather pillow. The weight of the snow above you feels like a heavy hand, telling you to stay still and sleep. You trust the wooden hoops. You trust the heavy canvas. You trust the white drifts that are burying the wheels. You are a pioneer, and you have learned to live with the snow instead of fighting it. You take a slow, deep breath, feeling the stillness of the air. The night shift continues, but the world is getting quieter and quieter. The watch is steady, and you are hidden away from the wind. In the deep dark of the buried wagon, you reach out and find your small lantern. The fire in the stove has gone down to a very low, quiet bed of coals, and the wagon is almost completely black. The darkness is so thick it feels like a heavy cloth over your eyes. You need just a little bit of light to feel safe. You strike another one of your precious matches and light the wick of your lantern. A small, warm glow begins to fill the space. It is not much light, but in this tiny wooden world, it feels as bright as the sun. This lantern is a simple tool, made of punched tin or thin brass. A historical fact about these lights is that they were often called lanthorns. This is an old word because, long ago, the windows of the lantern were made of very thin, see-through slices of cow horn instead of glass. Glass was very easy to break on the bumpy trail, so horn was much safer. Your lantern has small holes punched into the metal in the shape of stars and circles. As the candle burns inside, the light pokes through these holes and throws beautiful patterns onto the canvas roof and the wooden walls. You hold the lantern up, and the patterns dance. You see little dots of light jumping over your sacks of flour and your stacks of quilts. It makes the wagon feel less like a dark box and more like a cozy home. This is your micro-history detail. The tallow-candle. Double quotes, the candle inside your lantern is made of animal fat that you saved from your cooking. It has a slightly yellow color and a heavy, sweet smell as it burns. It does not burn as clean as a modern candle. It flickers and pops, and it gives off a tiny bit of black smoke that curls up toward the ceiling. But that flicker is like a heartbeat. It tells you that you are not alone in the dark. You fall into a moment of atmospheric reflection. You sit very still, watching the flame. It is a tiny, brave thing. Outside, there is a giant storm that could blow out a campfire in a second. But here, protected by the wood and the canvas and the deep snow drifts, this little flame is safe. You realize that your life is a lot like that flame. You are small, and the prairie is big, but you have found a way to keep your light burning. You watch the way the light catches the frost on the nail heads in the wood. Each one looks like a tiny diamond. The lantern gives off a very small amount of heat, just enough to warm your fingers if you hold them near the top. You enjoy the feeling of the warm metal. The glow makes the buffalo robe look rich and soft. It makes the faces of your family look peaceful. Light is a very special thing when you are far away from towns and streets. In 1850, when the sun went down, the world truly became dark. Having this one small lantern is like owning a piece of the day. It helps to keep the heavy feeling of the night away from your mind. You look at the shadow of the stovepipe on the canvas. It looks like a tall, dark finger. You think about the night shift watchman who might be looking for the glow of your wagon, but you know they cannot see you. The snow has piled up so high that your wagon is just a white mound in the dark. You are tucked away in your own private world. You decide to turn the lantern down a little bit to save the candle. You don't need much light to think, and you want to make sure you have enough tallow to last for the rest of the trip. As the light gets dimmer, the shadows grow longer and softer. The patterns from the punched tin holes seem to stretch out across the ceiling. You feel a deep sense of calm. The lantern is like a quiet friend. It doesn't say anything, but its presence makes the wagon feel warm and full. You remember how, back home, you used to have many lamps and big fires in the hearth. You didn't think much about light then, but out here, you learn the true value of a single candle. It is the difference between feeling lost and feeling found. You place the lantern on a steady wooden crate next to your bed. You make sure it is far away from the straw and the blankets. Safety is always the most important thing for a watchman. You watch the flame for a few more minutes, letting the rhythm of the flicker lull you towards sleep. The wind is still humming outside, but the sound is so muffled by the snow that it feels like a dream. The yellow light makes the inside of the wagon look like it is made of gold. You think about the people of the future and wonder if they will ever know what it is like to sit in such a deep, quiet dark with only one candle for company. It is a very pure feeling. It makes you notice the small things, the texture of the wood, the weave of the cloth, the sound of your own heart. The night shift is a time for seeing with more than just your eyes. You feel the warmth of the huddle and the protection of the wagon walls. Everything you need is right here in this small circle of light. You finally blow the candle out, puff, the light vanishes, but the image of the flame stays in your eyes for a second. The wagon is dark again, but it is a friendly dark now. You know exactly where everything is. You know the lantern is sitting right there on a crate, ready to be lit again if you need it. You pull the buffalo robe up over your shoulder and settle back down into the straw. The glow is gone, but the warmth of the light stays with you. The watch is steady, and you are ready for the middle night. In the dark, you reach out and feel the side of the wooden chest. Your fingers search for a very specific object. It is a small, heavy tin box. This is your matchbox, and it is the most important thing you own. Without it, you cannot have a fire, and without a fire, you cannot stay warm or cook your food. On the night shift, a pioneer has a special job. They must keep the fire tools dry. If the damp air of the blizzard gets into your matches, the wood will swell and the tips will not light. They will just crumble into useless dust. A historical fact about matches in the 1850s is that they were quite new and a bit dangerous. Before these matches, people had to use a piece of flint and a piece of steel to make a spark. It was very hard work and took a long time. These new lucifer matches were a miracle, but they were also very sensitive to moisture. This is why you keep yours in a tin box that has been sealed with a thin layer of beeswax around the lid. This wax creates a seal that keeps the wet air out. You hold the tin in your hand. It feels cool and smooth. You don't open it. You just check the seal with your thumb. You can feel the slightly sticky wax still in place. This is your micro-history detail. The match-silk double quotes inside the tin. You have wrapped your matches in a small piece of old silk cloth. Silk is a wonderful material because it does not hold on to water like cotton or wool does. It stays dry and slippery. Even if a little bit of frost gets inside the tin, the silk will protect the white pine sticks of the matches. You also keep a small, flat stone in the bottom of the tin. This is your striker. You have rubbed it until it is perfectly clean and dry. By keeping everything together in this one safe box, you are making sure that you always have the power to create heat. You fall into a moment of atmospheric reflection. You sit in the dark, clutching the tin box to your chest. You think about how small and fragile a match is. It is just a tiny splinter of wood with a chemical tip. Yet, that tiny stick is the only thing standing between you and the freezing cold. It makes you realize how much we rely on small things to stay alive. You listen to the silence of the wagon, which is now wrapped in deep snow. You feel like a keeper of a secret. You have the secret of fire hidden in your hands. You also check your other fire tools. You feel for the charcloth bag. Charcloth is a piece of cotton fabric that has been burnt in a special way until it is black and crispy. It catches a spark very easily. Even if your matches were to fail, you could use a spark to start a glow in the charcloth and then blow it into a flame. You touch the small leather pouch. It feels soft and dry. You have tucked it deep into your bedding, near the heat of your body. This is a smart trick. The warmth from your skin helps to drive away any dampness that might try to sneak into the pouch. The air in the wagon is very cold now that the lantern is out and the stove is low. You can feel the chill on your nose, but knowing that your fire tools are safe makes you feel much warmer on the inside. You are prepared. You are the watchman, and you have checked your gear. You think about the people who weren't as careful, the ones who left their matchboxes on the floor or forgot to seal the lids. You feel a bit of pity for them. On the trail, being clever is just another word for staying alive. You take pride in your tidy habits. You remember the first rule your father taught you: keep your powder dry and your matches drier. He was talking about gunpowder, but on the winter trail, the matches are just as important. You tuck the tin matchbox back into its special spot in the cedar chest. You make sure it is wrapped in an extra woolen rag for more protection. You move slowly, making no sound. The rest of your family is still sleeping deeply, their breath making soft, rhythmic noises in the dark. You are the only one awake, performing this quiet check of your survival tools. The weight of the snow on the roof seems to press down even more. You think about the night shift and how it is often about these small, hidden tasks. No one will see you checking the matchbox. No one will thank you for keeping the char cloth dry. But if the morning comes and the stove needs to be lit quickly because the cold has become too much, you will be ready. You will have your spark. You will have your flame. This readiness gives you a deep sense of peace. You are not afraid of the dark or the cold because you have the tools to fight them. You lean back into the straw, feeling the rough texture of the wool blankets. You are the master of your small space. You have your wood, your canvas, your fur, and your fire tools. You have turned a wild, dangerous blizzard into a time of rest. You listen to the wind, which is now just a distant hum through the white drifts. It feels like the storm is a giant beast that is pacing around your wagon, unable to find a way in. You smile to yourself in the dark. You have won this hour of the night. The silence returns, and you let your hand drop away from the chest. Your work is done for now. You feel the warmth of the huddle pulling at you, inviting you back into sleep. You close your eyes, the image of the golden matchtips still in your mind. You are safe. You are ready. The watch is steady, and the fire tools are dry. You drift back into the dream of the trail, knowing that you hold the power of the sun in a small tin box. The cold has a way of finding the smallest gaps. Even under the heavy buffalo robe, you can feel the air inside the wagon getting sharper as the middle of the night arrives. To stay truly warm, you must understand the art of the layer. You do not just wear one thick coat. Instead, you wear many thin things all at once. This is because the warmth does not come from the clothes themselves. It comes from the air that gets trapped between the layers. Your body is like a small stove, and your clothes are the walls that keep the heat from blowing away. You are currently wearing almost everything you own. It starts with your long johns. A historical fact you might like is that these were often called Union suits. They are one-piece undergarments made of thick, red or white knitted wool. They cover you from your wrists down to your ankles. The wool is a bit itchy, but it is a smart fabric. Even if you sweat a little bit, wool stays warm, unlike cotton, which gets cold and heavy when it is wet. This is your first wall of protection, sitting right against your skin. On top of your Union suit, you have a linen shirt, and over that, a heavy woolen waistcoat. A waistcoat is just a vest with many buttons. It keeps your chest and your heart warm, which is the most important part of your body to protect. If your heart stays warm, it can pump warm blood to your fingers and toes. Your trousers are made of buckskin or a heavy wool. Buckskin is leather made from the skin of a deer. It is very good at blocking the wind, even if a draft sneaks through a crack in the wagon wood. This is your micro-history detail, the wristlets. These are small tubes of knitted wool that you wear around your wrists, tucked into your sleeves. Many pioneers used them because the gap between a glove and a coat sleeve is where the cold air likes to hide. By wearing these wristlets, you seal that gap. You can feel the snug, warm pressure of the wool against your pulse. It feels like a small, constant hug on each arm. It is a tiny detail, but it makes a big difference when the temperature drops below zero. You fall into a moment of atmospheric reflection. You move your arms and legs slightly under the blankets. You feel a bit like a padded doll. It is hard to move quickly when you are wearing so many layers, but you don't need to move quickly. You just need to stay still and let the layers do their job. You listen to the sound of the wool rubbing against the leather of your trousers. Swish, swish. It is a soft, muffled sound. Everything in the wagon feels muffled now, thanks to the snow outside and the clothes on your body. You think about your feet. You are wearing 3 pairs of socks. The first pair is thin silk, the second is thick sheep's wool, and the third pair is a set of vamps. Vamps are extra thick woolen socks that only go over the toes and the front of the foot. You remember your mother knitting these by the fire back home. She knew that the toes are the first things to freeze. Under the blankets, your feet feel like they are wrapped in warm clouds. Between the socks and the hot stones at the end of the bed, your feet are probably the warmest part of you right now. You pull your muffler up over your nose. A muffler is just a very long, knitted scarf. You have wrapped it twice around your neck and tucked the ends into your waistcoat. When you breathe out, the warm air from your lungs gets caught in the wool of the muffler. Then, when you breathe in, the air is already a little bit warm instead of being like ice. This protects your throat and keeps you from coughing in the night. You feel very tucked in, like a letter inside a thick envelope. The night shift for your clothes is a quiet one. They are working hard to hold on to every bit of heat your body makes. You think about how people in the future might have fancy heaters that turn on with a click. But you like your layers. They are honest. You know exactly where the wool came from, and you know who knitted the socks. Each layer is like a memory of home and a promise of safety. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the sheep that gave their wool and the deer that gave their skin. The wagon rocks gently, and you feel the weight of all that cloth pressing down on you. It is a very heavy feeling, but it is not uncomfortable. It feels like being protected by a soft shield. You look at the dark shape of your boots on the floor. You are glad you are not in them right now. You are glad to be in your layers, in your straw, under your buffalo robe. You take a slow, deep breath, and the air smells of old wool and clean linen. You realize that you have become very good at being a pioneer. You know how to dress, how to sleep, and how to wait. The blizzard can do whatever it wants on the outside. On the inside, you are a master of heat. You are a bundle of warm wool and living breath. You let your muscles relax, one by one. Your shoulders, your back, your legs. Everything is warm. Everything is safe. The watch is steady, and the layers are holding strong. You close your eyes and let the warmth carry you deeper into the quiet night. The night has grown very deep, and the world outside has become almost perfectly still. The wind has dropped to a low whisper, but the cold has reached its peak. This is the time when the ice truly takes hold. Deep beneath you, under the floor of the wagon, something is happening. The damp mud and the slush from the start of the storm have frozen solid. You hear a sharp, metallic crack that echoes through the wooden floorboards. It sounds like a gunshot in the quiet night. You don't jump, because you know what it is. It is the ice gripping the heavy iron rims of your wagon wheels. A historical fact about pioneer wagons is that the wheels were made of several parts. There was the wooden hub in the middle, the spokes like fingers reaching out, and the felloes which formed the wooden circle. But around the very outside was a thick hoop of iron called a tire. In the summer heat, the wood would shrink and the iron tire might fall off. But tonight, the opposite is happening. The extreme cold is making the iron shrink and tighten around the wood. The ice on the ground is freezing to the iron, locking your wheels to the earth as if they were bolted down. You lie in the dark, listening to the wagon. Every few minutes, you hear another groan or a pop from the wheels. This is your micro-history detail. Wheel lock. When a wagon sits in a blizzard, the snow around the wheels melts a little bit from the weight and then freezes again. This creates a block of ice that wraps around the bottom of the wheel. If you tried to pull the wagon now, the oxen would not be able to move it. You would have to take a heavy axe or a crowbar and chip the ice away from the iron rims. It is a reminder that the trail is a living thing, and right now, the trail has decided you are staying exactly where you are. You fall into a moment of atmospheric reflection. You think about the wheels. During the day, they are always moving creak clomp turning thousands of times to carry you toward the sunset. They are the symbols of your journey. But tonight, they are resting. They are frozen into the soil of the prairie. You feel a strange connection to the earth through those wheels. You are anchored to this one spot of land. For this one night, this small patch of grass and snow is your only home in the world. You are not a traveler right now. You are a resident of the winter. The silence is so heavy that you can almost hear the frost growing. You imagine the ice climbing up the wooden spokes, turning the brown hickory wood into white glass. You think about the grease inside the hubs. You remember that thick, black pine tar grease you used back in the autumn. Now, it is as hard as a stone. Everything that was meant to move has stopped. There is something very peaceful about this total stillness. The night shift has turned from a struggle into a pause. The world is holding its breath, waiting for the sun to break the ice's grip. You reach out a hand and feel the bolt head sticking through the wooden side of the wagon near your bed. It is covered in a thick layer of white rime. Rime is a type of ice that forms when damp wind hits a cold surface. It looks like tiny, white feathers or fur. It is beautiful to look at, but it is a sign of the deadly cold. You rub a little bit of it between your thumb and finger. It feels like cold sand. You realize that the wagon is becoming part of the landscape. If a stranger walked by, they might not even see a wagon. They would just see a hill of white ice and snow. You think about the night shift watchman outside. He has a very hard job now. He has to keep moving, so his own joints do not freeze like the wagon wheels. He walks around the circle of wagons, his boots making a sharp crunch-crunch sound on the frozen crust. Every time he passes your wagon, you hear the vibration of his footsteps through the ice that connects the wheels to the ground. It is a steady, rhythmic sound that tells you someone is still awake. Someone is still guarding the flame. The air inside the wagon is so cold that the moisture from your breath is starting to freeze on the underside of the canvas. You look up and see the tiny sparkles in the dim light of the dying embers. It looks like a sky full of stars inside your wagon. You realize that you are living inside a giant frost jewel. Every surface is covered in a thin layer of ice, but under your buffalo robe, in the middle of your straw nest, you are still warm. Your body heat is a little island of summer in a sea of winter. You feel a deep sense of respect for your wagon. It is taking the brunt of the storm. The wheels are locked in ice, the wood is popping in the cold, and the canvas is heavy with snow. It is protecting you with everything it has. You think about the people who built it back in Missouri or Pennsylvania. They knew that their work would be tested by blizzards like this. They did their job well. The iron is holding. The wood is holding. The ice can grip the wheels, but it cannot get inside the box. You let your head sink deeper into the pillow. You are not worried about being stuck. You know that when the sun comes up, the ice will start to soften, and the work of the day will begin. But for now, the stillness is a gift. You don't have to walk. You don't have to drive the oxen. You just have to exist. You listen to one last crack from the wheels as the iron settles into the frost. The night shift is at its coldest point. The watch is steady, and you are safe in the grip of the winter silence. As you lie in the dark, the cold is so deep that you can no longer feel the individual layers of your blankets. You have become one single mass of warmth. To keep your spirits up during this long, frozen night shift, you do what many pioneers did. You travel in your mind. You close your eyes and let the sound of the wind fade away. You begin to remember the summer sun. You think about the days back in July when the prairie was not a white desert, but a sea of gold and green. You remember how the sun felt like a heavy, warm hand pressing against your back as you walked beside the oxen. In the summer, the sun was so bright it made you squint. A historical fact about the trail is that pioneers often suffered from something called prairie fever, which was sometimes just a name for being too hot and tired under the endless sun. But tonight, that heat feels like a beautiful dream. You remember the smell of the sun on the grass so dry, sweet scent that filled your lungs. You remember the way the heat waves would dance over the horizon, making the distant hills look like they were made of water. Back then, you were searching for shade. Now, you would give anything for just 1 minute of that golden heat. This is your micro-history detail, the sunbonnet. In the summer, the women and children wore these large hats made of starched cotton. They had long flaps that covered the neck and a big brim to hide the face from the sun. You remember seeing a row of bonnets bobbing along the trail like white flowers. The fabric would get so hot that you could feel the warmth coming off it even after the sun went down. You imagine holding one of those sun-warmed bonnets against your cheek right now. It would feel like a fresh loaf of bread straight from the oven. You fall into a moment of atmospheric reflection. You picture the wide, blue sky of August. There were no clouds then, only a deep, endless blue that made the world feel giant and full of hope. You remember the sound of the grasshoppers buzzing in the heater dry, rhythmic sha-sha-sha that sounded like the earth was breathing. It is so different from the screaming whistle of the blizzard. You let that summer sound fill your ears. You imagine the feeling of the warm dust between your toes and the way the water in the creek felt cool, but not cold. In your mind, you are standing in a field of sunflowers, and the air is thick and heavy with warmth. Thinking about the heat actually helps your body stay warm. When you are happy and calm, your blood flows better. You remember the nooning, which was the break the wagon train took in the middle of the day. You would sit under the shade of the wagon and eat a piece of cold bread. The wooden wheels, which are now frozen in ice, would be hot to the touch. You remember the smell of the sun-warmed wood and the pine tar grease when it was soft and drippy. These memories are like small pieces of coal that you are adding to the fire of your heart. You think about the night shift in the summer. It was so different then. The air was warm and smelled of sagebrush and evening primrose. You could sleep on top of your blankets with the wagon flaps wide open to catch the breeze. You would watch the fireflies dancing in the tall grass, looking like tiny lanterns floating in the dark. The stars were bright and clear, not hidden behind a wall of snow. You remember the sound of the banjo playing by the campfire and the laughter of the children. It feels like a lifetime ago, but it was only a few months. The wind gives the wagon a sharp shake, trying to wake you from your dream, but you hold on to the summer. You imagine the sun rising over a field of wild clover. You feel the warmth soaking into your bones, melting away the stiffness of the winter. You think about how the seasons are a great circle. The ice is here now, but the sun is waiting just behind the curve of the earth. The grass is still there, sleeping under the snow, waiting to turn green again. This thought gives you a deep sense of peace. You are part of the circle, too. You realize that the night shift is just the winter's way of resting. The earth needs the snow to bring water for the summer grass. Without this cold, the prairie would be a desert. You start to feel a bit of love for the blizzard, because it is the promise of the spring to come. You take a slow, deep breath. The air in your blanket cave is warm, and in your mind, the sun is still shining. You are a pioneer of the spirits as well as the land. You can carry your own summer with you. Even in the middle of a frozen world, you let the memories drift. You see the yellow dust kicking up behind the wagons. You hear the call of the meadowlark. You feel the sweat on your forehead. These are good things. They are the reasons you are on this journey. You are moving toward a new home where the sun will shine on your own fields. The ice on the wheels is just a temporary anchor. Soon enough, you will be rolling again through the heat and the light. The silence of the wagon returns, but it no longer feels heavy. It feels like a quiet weight. You are the watchman of the seasons. You have seen the heat, and you have seen the cold, and you know that both are necessary. You pull the buffalo robe a little closer, feeling the warmth of your own body. The summer is inside you. You close your eyes and let the golden light of your memories guide you back towards sleep. The watch is steady, and the sun is coming, even if it is still a long way off. The hot tea has settled in your belly, and you feel a deep sense of quiet strength. You lie back and look at the walls of the wagon. In the darkness, you cannot see the color of the wood, but you know it is there. These walls are your true protectors. While the canvas keeps out the snow, the wooden boards keep out the world. You reach out and run your hand along the side of the wagon box. The wood is cold, but it is solid. It does not bend or shake like the cloth above you. It is a thick, honest barrier made of oak and hickory. A historical fact you might find interesting is how these wagons were built to last. The boards were not just nailed together. They used a style called tongue and groove. This means each board has a little ridge or one side and a little slot on the other. They fit together like the pieces of a puzzle. This makes the wall very strong and helps to block the wind. If the wood was just flat boards, the wind would blow right through the cracks. But because of this clever design, your wagon is as tight as a house. You feel the grain of the wood under your fingertips. It feels rough and bumpy. You can feel the small knots and the lines where the tree once grew. This wood has a micro-history detail of its own. Wagon paint. To keep the wood from rotting in the rain, pioneers would paint the outside with a mix of linseed oil and turpentine. Sometimes they used a bright blue or red color. This paint creates a hard skin over the wood. You can smell a faint, sharp scent of the oil even now. It is the smell of a machine that has been cared for. It is the smell of safety. You fall into a moment of atmospheric reflection. You press your ear against the wooden wall. You can hear the blizzard on the other side. It sounds like someone is rubbing sandpaper against the wood. Scritch, scritch, scritch. That is the sound of thousands of tiny ice crystals hitting the wagon. It is a very cold sound, but because the wood is thick, the sound is soft. You feel like you are inside a big wooden musical instrument, listening to the song of the winter. You are not scared of the noise because you know the wood is stronger than the ice. The wagon box is like a small fortress. You think about how much weight it is carrying. It holds your food, your tools, and your family. It is the foundation of your whole life on the trail. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the men who cut down the trees and built this box. They knew that one day, a person like you would be leaning against these boards, counting on them to stay together in a storm. They did their work with pride, and you are the one who is safe because of it. You look at the iron bolts that hold the boards to the frame. In the dim light, they look like small, dark bumps. You touch one, and it is freezing cold, much colder than the wood. Metal steels heat quickly, but wood holds onto it. This is why you are glad your home is made of timber. You imagine the trees this wood came from big, tall oaks that stood in the forest for 100 years. They stood through many winters before they became your wagon. They know how to handle the cold. The night shift for the wood is a long one. It has to hold up the heavy snow and stand against the pushing wind for hours and hours. You hear a low creak as the wood settles into the ice. It is a sleepy sound. It reminds you of an old floorboard in a house. You realize that the wagon has become your house. You don't miss the big stone chimneys or the glass windows of the east as much tonight. This small wooden box is enough. It is the perfect size for a family and a fire. You think about the space between the boards. Even with the tongue and groove, a tiny bit of air might try to get in. You remember how you stuffed the smallest cracks with bits of old wool and oakum. Oakum is a rope that has been soaked in tar to make it waterproof. You used a small wooden hammer to tap the oakum into the gaps back in the autumn. You feel one of those spots now. It feels hard and dry. You have done your job as the watchman. You have made your walls as tight as they can be. The silence returns to the wagon, but it is a thick silence. It is the silence of being well protected. You feel like you are inside a giant nutshell, hidden away from the birds and the wind. The world outside is a white chaos, but inside, everything is in its place. The wood keeps the dark out and the warmth in. You let your head drop back onto the pillow, feeling the solidness of the wagon bed beneath you. You are not moving, but the wagon is still carrying you. It is carrying you through the night. You take a slow, deep breath, smelling the scent of the cedar chest and the oiled oak. It is a sturdy, honest smell. You feel your muscles go soft. You are safe. The walls are holding. The blizzard can scream all it wants, but it cannot break the heart of the wood. You are the watchman, and your fortress is secure. You close your eyes, letting the soft scritch of the snow on the boards carry you back toward a deep and peaceful sleep. The watch is steady, and the wood is strong. The night is very long, and sometimes the silence inside the wagon makes you want to see what is happening in the world outside. You have been tucked away for many hours, wrapped in your buffalo robe and protected by the wooden walls. You decide to take a quick look. You move very slowly, so you do not let the warm air out of your bed. You reach toward the front of the wagon. Near the wooden seat where the driver sits during the day, there is a tiny gap where the heavy canvas is tied to the wooden frame. You pull the cloth back just an inch. At first, you see nothing but darkness, but as your eyes adjust, you see the white world. The moon is hidden behind the clouds, but the snow itself seems to have a soft, ghostly glow. It is a very strange and beautiful sight. A historical fact about the prairie is that during a blizzard, the air becomes so thick with snow that you cannot see your own hand in front of your face. People called this a whiteout, but now the wind has slowed down just a bit, and the snow is falling in big, heavy flakes. You look through the gap and see that the trail is gone. There are no ruts from the wheels and no path to follow. Everything is a smooth, white blanket. The other wagons in the circle look like large, white mounds of sugar. You can only see the very tops of their canvas covers. The snow has piled up so high that it has reached the middle of your wagon box. You are truly buried in a deep, cold sea. This is your micro-history detail, the snow line. Pioneers would use the height of the snow against the wagon wheels to tell how deep the drifts were. Right now, the snow line is very high, which means you will have a lot of digging to do when the sun comes up. You fall into a moment of atmospheric reflection. You watch a single snowflake land on the edge of the wood. It is perfectly shaped, like a tiny star made of ice. For a second, it stays there, bright and clear, before it melts away. You realize how quiet the world is. There is no sound of birds, no sound of water, and no sound of footsteps. It is the quietest thing you have ever heard. It is a cold quiet that feels very heavy. You feel like the only person left in the whole world. You look toward the center of the wagon circle. You can see the dark shapes of the oxen. They look like statues made of stone. Their backs are covered in white, and their heads are tucked down. You see a tiny bit of steam rising from their noses, and it makes you happy. It means they are still warm and breathing. You also see the shadow of the watchman. He's a dark shape moving slowly through the white. He looks very small in such a big, frozen place. You feel a shiver that has nothing to do with the cold. The prairie is so vast, and you are so small. The air that comes through the gap is like a sharp knife. It hits your face and makes your eyes water. You can smell the snow. It has a very thin smell, like cold metal and wet stone. It is the cleanest smell in the world. You realize that out there, the temperature is low enough to freeze water in a few seconds. If you were out there without your layers and your wagon, you would not last very long. This thought makes you pull the canvas back into place very quickly. You tie the ropes tight, sealing the gap once more. The wagon feels even warmer now that you have seen the cold. The yellow light from the tiny stove embers feels like a warm hug. You realize that you have a secret world in here. Outside is the whiteout and the snow line, but inside is the straw and the wool. You feel a deep sense of safety. You are like a little bird in a nest, hidden away from the hawk. The blizzard is the hawk, and the wagon is your thick, thorny bush that keeps you safe. You think about the night shift and how it is a job of waiting. You cannot fight the snow. You cannot push the storm away. You just have to sit still and let it happen. You are the watchman of the window, and you have seen that the world is still there, even if it is covered in white. You feel a sense of peace. The storm is doing its work, and you are doing yours. You are staying alive. You move back to your bed, feeling the weight of the blankets settle over you again. The image of the white world stays in your mind. It was beautiful, but it was also scary. You are glad to be on this side of the wood. You listen to the silence again. It no longer feels lonely. It feels like a soft blanket. You have seen the challenge of the morning, but you don't have to face it yet. You have a few more hours of the night shift to go. You take a slow, deep breath. The air is warm and smells of your family and your home. You feel your heart beat slowly and steadily. You are a pioneer, and you have seen the face of the winter. You are not afraid. You close your eyes, and the white world fades away, replaced by the warm, dark peace of your wagon. The watch is steady, and the snow continues to fall, building your walls of white higher and higher. You are safe. You are hidden. You are warm. The night has reached its deepest point. That quiet hour when the cold feels like it is trying to turn everything into stone. Even with your layers of wool and your heavy buffalo robe, you feel a stiffness starting to creep into your legs and arms. This is the danger of the deep night shift. When you lie perfectly still for too long, your heart beats more slowly, and your blood does not move as quickly to your fingers and toes. To stay safe, you must move, even if you are staying under the blankets. You need to wake up the fire inside your own body. A historical fact you might like to know is that pioneers had a special way of keeping their blood moving called isometric exercise. They did not call it that back then, of course. They just called it tensing. It means you squeeze your muscles as hard as you can without moving your bones. You start with your toes. Under the heavy blankets, you curl your toes tightly, feeling the muscles in your feet pull. Then you let go. You do it again. Squeeze and relax. Squeeze and relax. You can feel a tiny wave of warmth starting to move up from your heels. It is a small thing, but it is how you tell your body that the day is not over yet. You move up to your legs. You tighten your calf muscles, then your thighs. You feel your legs become hard like the wooden wagon wheels, and then soft like the straw mattress. Each time you do this, your heart has to work a little bit harder to push blood into those muscles. This blood carries the heat from your chest out to your skin. This is your micro-history detail. The blood dash double quotes pioneers knew that if a part of your body felt numb or asleep, you had to wake it up before the real frost could bite. You rub your thighs with your hands under the covers, feeling the friction of the wool against your skin. Friction creates heat, and that heat is yours to keep. You fall into a moment of atmospheric reflection. You lie in the dark, focusing entirely on the feeling of your own pulse. You find the heartbeat in your wrist, right where the woolen wristlets touch your skin. Thump thump, thump thump. It is a steady, quiet sound. It is the sound of your life continuing in the middle of a frozen world. You realize that you are like a little clock that never stops ticking, no matter how much snow piles up outside, and no matter how much the wind screams. That little drum inside your chest keeps beating. It makes you feel very strong. You are not just a person in a wagon. You are a living flame that the winter cannot put out. You move your fingers next. You make a fist and then stretch your fingers out wide, over and over. You feel the joints in your hands becoming loose and warm. You think about the night shift watchman outside. He's doing the same thing, but in a much bigger way. He has to swing his arms across his chest and stomp his feet on the ground to stay warm. You can hear him now, a distant thud-thud as he hits his hands against his shoulders. You are doing the hidden version of his dance. You're the watchman of your own blood, making sure it never stops moving. You think about how your body is like the small metal stove. The food you ate, that warm cornmeal mush, is the fuel. Your breath is the air that helps the fire burn. And your movement is like the person who pokes the fire to keep the embers glowing. You take a deep, slow breath, feeling your chest expand against the weight of the buffalo robe. You feel the warmth of your lungs. You are doing a good job. You are keeping the internal fire bright. The wagon is so quiet that you can hear the soft rub-rub of your wool clothes against each other. You move your shoulders in a slow circle, feeling the stiffness leave your neck. The cold is still there, waiting just outside your blankets, but it cannot get a grip on you because you are moving. You are like a river that refuses to freeze because the water is always flowing. You feel a sense of pride. You are taking care of yourself using only your own strength. You think about the morning. Soon, you will have to use these muscles to dig out the wagon and lead the oxen. By moving now, you are making sure your body is ready for the work. You are not letting the cold make you weak. You are staying limber, which is a word pioneers used for being flexible and ready. You imagine your muscles as thick ropes of hemp, strong and steady. You feel the heat moving all the way down to your fingertips. They don't feel like ice anymore. They feel like warm wood. You settle back into the straw, but you keep a tiny bit of movement going. You wiggle your nose. You move your jaw from side to side. You even wiggle your ears a little bit. It is a funny thing to do in the dark, but it all helps. You feel very awake now, but in a calm way. You are not worried about the blizzard. You are too busy being alive. You take a slow, deep breath and let the air out through your nose, feeling the warmth on your upper lip. The night shift is moving along. You have checked the walls, the fire, the blankets, and now you have checked your own body. Everything is working. Everything is safe. You feel a deep sense of peace. You are the watchman, and the watch is steady. You are a bundle of heat and movement, hidden away in a white world of ice. You let your muscles relax one last time, feeling the blood hum through your veins like a soft song. You are ready for the final hours of the dark. You close your eyes, but you keep your toes wiggling just a little bit. It is your way of saying I am here to the night. The silence returns, but it is a happy silence. You are warm, you are strong, and you are winning. The winter is big, but you are clever. You let the rhythm of your heartbeat carry you toward the first light of the morning. The air inside the wagon is now at its coldest. The fire in the sheet iron stove has gone out completely, and the metal has turned back to a dull, cold grey. Even though you are tucked deep under your mountain of blankets, the tip of your nose is cold. You pull the buffalo robe down just an inch to take a breath, and you see it. A thick, white cloud of mist floats in front of your face. This is your breath turning into a tiny cloud as soon as it leaves your body. In the 1800s, seeing your breath inside your home was a normal part of winter, but in the small space of a wagon, it looks like a dance of ghosts. A historical fact you should know is that pioneers used their breath to tell how cold the night was. If the cloud was thin and vanished quickly, the frost was light. But if the cloud was thick, white, and hung in the air like smoke, it meant the temperature had dropped far below freezing. Tonight, your breath is very thick. It looks like the steam from a train engine. Every time you breathe out, you are sending a little bit of your internal heat out into the wagon. You watch the cloud drift up toward the dark wooden hoops of the roof. This is your micro-history detail, the frost beard. As you lie there, the moisture from your breath doesn't just vanish. It lands on the edges of your wool muffler and the top of the buffalo robe. Because the air is so cold, that moisture turns instantly into tiny ice crystals. If you were a man with a beard, your facial hair would be covered in white ice by now. You can feel the stiff, crunchy texture of the frost forming on the very edge of the blanket near your mouth. You reach out and touch it. It feels like tiny grains of sugar. It is strange to think that the water from your own body is building a tiny wall of ice right in front of you. You fall into a moment of atmospheric reflection. You lie perfectly still, matching your heartbeat to the rhythm of your breath. In and out, in and out. Each white cloud is a sign of life. You realize that as long as you can see that mist, you are doing okay. You are like a small engine that keeps running even in the middle of a freezer. You watch the clouds drift and swirl in the dim light. They look like tiny pieces of the blizzard that have come inside to visit you. But these clouds are warm. They come from the heart of you. You think about the night shift watchman outside. His breath must be a giant cloud that follows him like a shadow. You imagine him standing in the snow, his whole face covered in white frost, looking like a winter spirit. In this deep cold, your breath is the only thing that moves. Everything else, the wheels, the oxen, the water in the barrel is frozen solid. But your breath is free. It travels from your lungs into the air, and then turns into those beautiful crystals on the blankets. It is a cycle of heat and ice that never stops. You realize that the wagon is now very humid. Humidity is a word for when the air is full of tiny water drops. Because the snow has sealed the wagon so tightly, the air you breathe out is staying inside. This is actually a good thing. Damp air holds heat better than dry air. You feel the heavy feeling of the air in your lungs. It feels thick and soft. You pull the blanket back up over your nose to trap that warm mist. By breathing into the space under the robe, you are helping to keep your face and neck warm. You are recycling your own heat. The silence of the wagon is broken only by the sound of your own breathing. It is a soft, rhythmic hush-hush sound. You listen to the breath of your family members beside you. You see their tiny white clouds rising up in the dark, too. It makes you feel very connected to them. You are all breathing together, creating a small cloud of life in the middle of the white world. You think about how people have done this for thousands of years, huddling in caves or tents, watching their breath and waiting for the sun. You are part of a very old story. The night shift is almost over. You can feel a change in the air. It doesn't feel quite as sharp as it did an hour ago. You look at the frost on the buffalo robe. It is thick now, a white crust of ice. You think about how you will have to shake it off in the morning before it melts and makes the blankets damp. But that is a task for the daylight. For now, you just enjoy the magic of the mist. You are a pioneer, and you are a creator of clouds. You let your eyes grow heavy again. You watch one last puff of white air rise up and vanish into the shadows. It is a peaceful sight. It tells you that the fire inside you is still burning strong. You are the watchman, and your breath is your signal fire. You take a slow, deep breath, feeling the cold air turn warm inside your chest. You are safe, you are warm, the watch is steady, and the night is nearly done. You close your eyes, letting the rhythmic sound of the family's breath lull you into the final rest of the night. The long, heavy pressure of the night is finally starting to change. 4 hours. The wind has been a constant weight against the side of the wagon, but now you hear the gaps between the gusts getting longer. The screaming whistle has turned into a low, tired moan. It feels like the blizzard has run out of breath. It is moving on, pushing its wall of ice further across the prairie toward the south. You lie still, feeling the wagon stop its constant shivering. The wood is quiet now. The night shift of the storm is coming to an end. A historical fact about these big blizzards is that they often leave as quickly as they arrive. Pioneers called this the clearing. 1 minute the world is a white chaos, and the next the air becomes perfectly still and the clouds begin to break apart. You can feel the stillness now. It is so quiet that the silence actually makes your ears ring. Without the roar of the wind, the wagon feels like a completely different place. It no longer feels like a boat on a rough sea. It feels like a solid house again. This is your micro-history detail. The snow settle as the wind stops pushing the snow. The great drifts around your wagon begin to settle down under their own weight. You can hear a soft crump and a creak as the snow packs tightly against the wooden wheels and the canvas sides. The snow is no longer flying through the air. It is becoming a solid part of the land. You realize that you are now inside a very strong, icy cave. The air inside the wagon feels a bit warmer because there is no wind to steal the heat through the tiny cracks in the wood. You fall into a moment of atmospheric reflection. You look up at the top of the wagon. Through the thin metal stovepipe, you can hear a new sound. It is not the whistle of the wind, but a faint, high-pitched tinkle. You realize it is the sound of the stars. When the air is this cold and the wind stops, the sky becomes so clear that the stars seem to crackle in the dark. You can almost feel the light of the stars reaching down through the pipe. You feel a great sense of relief. The danger of being blown over or buried alive has passed. You have survived the worst of the winter's anger. You think about the night shift watchman. He must be standing still for the first time in hours, looking up at the sky. You imagine him brushing the frost from his eyelashes and taking a deep, easy breath. He can stop fighting the wind and start looking for the first hint of light on the horizon. You feel a sense of shared victory with him. You stayed in your bed, and he stayed on his feet, and together you made it through the dark. The night shift is almost over, and the morning is a promise that is finally being kept. You move your legs under the buffalo robe, and the straw mattress makes a soft, happy crunch. The heat from the stones at your feet is almost gone, but the bed is still cozy and warm. You realize that you don't need the stones anymore. The air is no longer trying to freeze you. You take a slow, deep breath, and the white cloud of your breath is thinner now. The world is becoming gentle again. You feel a deep sense of peace, like a heavy weight has been lifted from your chest. You think about the trail ahead. The snow is very deep, and the work will be hard, but you are not worried. You have your strength, you have your wagon, and the storm has moved on. You imagine the sun hitting the snow and turning the whole prairie into a field of diamonds. It will be a beautiful morning. You feel a bit of excitement bubbling up inside you. You have faced the giant of the winter, and you are still here. You are a pioneer, and you are ready for whatever the new day brings. The silence of the wagon is now a warm silence. It is the silence of rest after a long battle. You listen to the quiet breathing of your family. They are still sleeping, unaware that the storm has left. You decide to let them sleep for a little longer. You are the watchman of the dawn, and you will be the one to tell them that the world is safe again. You watch the dark shadows on the canvas start to turn a very faint, deep blue. This is the first sign that the light is coming. You let your head sink back into the feather pillow. You feel a sense of completion. You have done everything a watchman should do. You have guarded the fire, the blankets, the walls, and the heart of your home. The watch is steady, and the night is fading. You take one last slow, deep breath, smelling the clean, cold air of the clearing storm. You are safe. You are warm. The blizzard is gone, and the morning is waiting just behind the hills. The deep blue of the canvas roof is slowly turning into a pale, soft grey. You have reached the end of the long night shift. The stars have faded away, and the first light of the morning is beginning to press against the white snow outside. You lie still for a few more minutes, enjoying the last moments of the quiet. The air in the wagon is cold, but it is a new cold, the kind that feels fresh and full of hope instead of heavy and dangerous. You can feel the change in your heart. The fear of the night is gone, replaced by the steady strength of the day. You reach out and pull the back flap of the wagon open, just a tiny bit. A beam of bright, golden light shoots into the dark space. It is so bright that it makes your eyes sting for a second. You look out and see the world. The sun is rising over the edge of the flat earth, turning the snow into a sea of pink and gold. The sky is a clear, pale blue, without a single cloud. The prairie looks like it is made of sparkling glass. It is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen. You realize that you have made it. You have passed through the storm and reached the morning. A historical fact about the morning before a blizzard is that the air is often perfectly still. Pioneers called this the Great Calm. You can feel it now. There is no wind at all. You hear a soft thump as a piece of snow falls from a nearby wagon. You hear the first low moo from an ox as it wakes up and shakes the frost from its back. The night shift watchman is finally walking back toward his own wagon, his job finished. The circle of wagons is waking up, and the smoke from the first breakfast fires is starting to rise straight up into the cold, clear air. This is your final micro-history detail. The snow shovel. You reach for the heavy wooden shovel tucked under the edge of the bed. It is made of a single piece of white ash wood with a sharp metal edge. You will need it to dig out the wheels and clear a path for the oxen. The wood of the handle feels cold and honest in your hands. You are ready for the work. You are ready to move again. The ice that gripped the wheels in the night will soon melt under the heat of the sun and the strength of your own arms. You fall into a final moment of reflection. You look at your family, still tucked under the buffalo robes. They are safe because you were the watchman. You did the small, important things. You checked the stove. You layered the blankets. You kept the matches dry. And you watched your breath in the dark. You realized that being a pioneer is not always about moving forward. Sometimes it is about standing still and holding on. You have learned the lesson of the winter. You are stronger than the storm. You sit on the edge of the straw bed and pull on your heavy leather boots. They are cold, but you don't mind. You feel the warmth of the sun hitting the canvas above you, and you know that soon the whole wagon will be full of light. You take one last slow, deep breath of the wagon air, the smell of cedar, wool, and wood smoke. It is the smell of a home that moves. You feel a deep sense of pride. You are a guardian of the past, and you have kept the watch. The sun is rising. The heavy weight of the blizzard is melting away. You can hear the other travelers calling out to each other. Their voices bright and clear in the cold air. The world is opening up again. You stand up, stretching your muscles and feeling the blood flow strong in your veins. You are ready to step out into the white world and start the journey once more. The long night is over, and the path to the west is waiting for you. The air is getting warmer every minute. You can see the frost on the wood starting to turn into tiny drops of water. The night shift is a memory now, a story you will tell your grandchildren one day. You will tell them about how you stayed warm in a wooden box, while the world turned white. You will tell them about the hot stones and the buffalo fur. But for now, it is just your life. It is just another day on the trail. You reach for the back flap and pull it wide open, letting the full glory of the morning fill your home. Slowly, the world begins to wake up. Your eyes grow heavy with a peaceful kind of tired. You know that you are safe now. The storm has passed, and you are surrounded by the quiet beauty of the new snow. You can let go of the watch. You can let the day take over. The light is everywhere, and the cold has no more power over you. You are a part of the history of the night, and your story is safe. The sun is rising. The gates are opening. The watch is ended.